And a good rainy Monday afternoon. Welcome to a special edition of Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. I'm Ernest Bethea, the last outlaw. So good to have everybody here in the house. And the reason I had scheduled this one for this afternoon, yesterday I had an unforeseen interruption during the broadcast. I'm hoping that I can get away and knock this out clean as a whistle. Also, right now, we are in the midst of a verdict watch out in Georgia. The burn pile murder trial of Melanie Walker Ferris is in the hands of a jury right now. They are currently 15 hours, almost 23 minutes and counting. If there's a verdict, I will be sure to break into the schedule and let you know what that verdict is right here. Right now, we're going to start things off as I normally do with our missing persons update. Keep your eye on your screen. Our first is Sawade Birding Ground. She has been declared missing as of October 6, 2024, out of Garryowen, Montana. Sawade has brown curly hair with brown eyes, stands between 5'4" and 5'5", weighs between 130 and 140 pounds. She is of Native American ancestry. Here's all the details. Sawade Birding Ground was last seen at her family's residence in Garryowen, Montana, within the boundaries of the Crow Indian Reservation after approximately 11 p.m. on October 6, 2024. She was last seen wearing a black hoodie with mushrooms on it, an anime t-shirt, basketball shorts, and purple slip-on Skechers brand shoes. She may have a black and purple Adidas backpack with her. She is also known to wear an elk tooth necklace. Birding Ground is a member of the Crow tribe. So now that you have that information, if there is anyone who has any information on the whereabouts of Sawade Birding Ground, please, as I always ask you, do not hesitate. Call 911 immediately. Get in contact with the FBI's 24-hour tip line at 1-800-CALL-FBI 225-5324. You can also call the Bighorn County Sheriff's Office. That number is area code 406-665-9798. 406-665-9798. Or you can submit your tip anonymously at tips.fbi.gov. Alright, let's move on to our second missing persons case. This is Stephanie Dameron. She's been missing since September 24th, 2024 out of New Sweden, Maine. She was 13 years of age at the time of her disappearance. She has brown shoulder-length hair with green eyes. She stood about 5 feet tall, weighed around 130 pounds. Here's the details in this case. The FBI's Boston Field House. The FBI's Boston Field Office and the Maine State Police are requesting the public's assistance in locating 13-year-old Stephanie Dameron of New Sweden, Maine. She was reported missing by her family on September 24, 2024. Stephanie was last seen wearing blue jeans, a long-sleeve blue t-shirt, a long-sleeve blue shirt, and black Harley-Davidson hiking boots. Well, again, you're asked to call 911 immediately if you have any information at all. Call 911 immediately. Call the FBI's 24-hour tip line, 1-800-CALL-FBI, or you can call the Maine State Police Moulton Barracks. Those numbers are 1-800-924 2261 or 207-532-5400. Again, those numbers are 800-924-2261 or 207-532-5400. Whatever you do, do not let these cases go by without your assistance. Let's find these young ladies and let's bring them home safe. As always, if you see something, say something. That way we can do something. All right. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is get set up here, and with each of the stories today, I'm going to avoid using any days because all the stories are what I gathered as of last week. Uh-oh, hold on a second. Oh wow. Looks like I will be breaking in at some point from during this broadcast because the jury appears to have reached a verdict in the burn pile murder trial, and let's see, in about 20 or so minutes, a little less than 20 minutes from now, we will have the verdict in the burn pile murder trial. And I left the poll in the chat. Do you think Melanie Ferris is guilty, not guilty, or will we have a hung jury? After the last few days, the jury has come back with a verdict after a total of 15 hours, 24 minutes, and 14 seconds. So we will see exactly what comes out of that. Right now, let's get to last week's stories. And again, I'm gonna try to avoid mentioning days because of like I said, it's all from last week. There we go. Alright. This is how we start. Grammy Award winning rapper Lil Durk has been arrested in Florida on federal charges that he paid for the attempted 2022 revenge killing of rapper Quando Rondo at a Los Angeles gas station, a shooting that resulted in the death of Rondo's cousin. 32-year-old Lil Durk is charged with conspiracy to commit murder for hire in the slaying of Savea Robinson, who was gunned down on August 19, 2022, according to an FBI affidavit. 5 others of Durk's Chicago-based rap collective, Only the Family, or OTF, have also been arrested, and at least 2 more arrests may be forthcoming, according to court documents that have been filed. Durk was arrested in South Florida as he attempted to flee the country, according to the FBI. Durk, whose real name is Dirk Banks, won a Grammy earlier this year for Best Melodic Rap Performance for his song All My Life, which featured J. Cole. He has now been nominated 3 times and was a featured performer on Drake's Laugh Now, Cry Later. The U.S. Attorney for Los Angeles, Martin Estrada, called the shooting a cold-blooded murder. Estrada said in a statement, "The shooting occurred in the open, at a gas station at a busy intersection, endangering many others in the area. Violent gun crime of this sort is devastating to our community, and we will have zero tolerance for those who perpetrate such callous acts of violence." FBI agent Sarah Corcoran said in her affidavit that OTF members engage in violence, including murder and assault, at the direction of Banks and to maintain their status in OTF. Durk's representatives did not immediately respond to emails seeking comment. According to Corcoran's affidavit and other federal court records, the shooting stems from the November 2020 slaying of OTF rapper King Von, age 26, at an Atlanta nightclub after Von and Rondo got into a fight. Records say a friend of Rondo's pulled a gun and shot Von several times, killing him. Von, whose real name was Davon Bennett, had two hit singles, Crazy Story and Took Her to the O. Authorities say Dirk made it known that he would pay a bounty to anyone who killed Rondo, whose real name was Tyquan Bowman. Almost 2 years later, a murder plot quickly came together, Corcoran wrote. On August 18, 2022, Dirk's associates learned that Rondo was staying at a Los Angeles hotel. That day, DeAndre Wilson, Keith Jones, David Lindsay, Asa Houston, and a fifth unnamed suspect flew from Chicago to San Diego, then drove to Los Angeles using funds provided by Dirk, Corcoran said. That day, Dirk allegedly texted an associate arranging the flights. Don't book no flights under no names involved with me, Corcoran said. There is video evidence that Dirk was staying at a house in the San Fernando Valley that day. Once arriving in Los Angeles, the OTF members met Keon Grant, who had flown there on a private jet. Grant, a top OTF associate, got the men hotel rooms, purchased 4 ski masks, and obtained 2 luxury sedans, court records say. Grant allegedly gave Jones, Lindsay, and a third unnamed suspect guns, including one that had been converted into a machine gun. The next day, the group allegedly followed Rondo and Robinson as they drove a Cadillac Escalade to a Los Angeles marijuana dispensary, a West Hollywood clothing store, and then a gas station across the street from the Beverly Center. There, Houston allegedly parked his car behind the station so Jones, Lindsay, and the unnamed defendant could ambush Rondo. They got out and opened fire, killing Robinson, who was standing outside of the Escalade, but missing Rondo, according to the indictment and news stories about the shooting. The suspects then went to an In-N-Out hamburger stand where they discussed payment with Grant and then flew home to Chicago from San Diego. That's according to Corcoran and other documents. Wilson allegedly later paid Jones and Lindsay an undisclosed amount. Grant, Jones, Lindsay, Wilson, and Houston were arrested in Chicago on a conspiracy to commit murder for hire charges. No attorney information was immediately available for those men in court records. After their arrests, Corcoran wrote, Dirk booked 2 flights from South Florida airports, one to Dubai and one to Switzerland. He then booked a private flight to Italy, but was arrested in Miami before he could board it. Dirk and the other defendants are being held pending their transfer to Los Angeles. In 2019, Dirk and King Von were charged in Atlanta with a drive-by shooting that left a man wounded in the leg. Prosecutors dropped the case against Dirk in 2022, 2 years after Von's slaying. Dirk had denied his involvement. In 2014, Dirk pleaded guilty to felony aggravated unlawful use of a weapon and felony possession of a firearm after he was seen carrying a gun on a Chicago street. He was spared jail time. 2 villages in Chicago's western suburbs, Bellwood and Broadview, last week honored Dirk and announced collaborations with his charity, Neighborhood Heroes Foundation. But Broadview Mayor Katrina Thompson announced she had severed ties to Neighborhood Heroes and had withdrawn the honorary key to the village given Dirk. While acknowledging that Dirk and other suspects are presumed innocent, village residents have even higher moral and ethical standards of behavior, Thompson wrote on the village's Facebook. A telephone message seeking comment from Andre Harvey, Bellwood's mayor, was left at his office. despite what you may think, I am not totally into the hip hop game, but I do notice a bad history. If there's a lot of beef, they're gonna do that. If they're not gonna squash it, they're gonna make sure it ends one way or the other, and it doesn't end well. So we're gonna see what happens with this whole entire case with Lil Durk, and I'll be sure to bring the updates here. Okay, the next story. I gotta laugh at this one. I gotta laugh at this one because of again because of history. Number one, and number two, I only have one question to this: why? All right, as you can see by the headline, Lori Vallow wants to represent herself against Arizona murder charges. You know what? I won't even bother with the article. I'm just gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and set this up. I'm gonna let Julie Grant give you all the details, get an expert to talk about it, and then I'm gonna put my 2 cents.
This case is going to be combined, or are they going to be done separately?
Well, they are 2 separate cases, but they're going to be handled at the same hearing.
Okay.
Okay. So you can talk to your lawyer, but they are 2 separate cases, which means that you'd have 2 separate proceedings going forward if it goes to trial.
Okay.
Now, for what's tipping the scales, jurors could be getting used to that voice in the future as cult mom Lori Vallow Daybell's back in the headlines. 2 big developments in her Arizona case. One of those developments leaves her pending conspiracy trial in jeopardy without a final date. So the judge has granted her motion for a competency evaluation. So we don't know when this thing is going to go. We know this trial is about her former husband, Charles Vallow, though. We know that he is the victim on this homicide case. And there's an attempted homicide as well of her former nephew, Brandon Boudreaux. Thank goodness he survived. And there's more. So the Doomsday Cult Mom's also looking to be without counsel. She wants to represent herself. So the court is going to wait and see what happens at that competency evaluation to then make a decision on the request to go pro se. Oh, so how could these recent developments tip the scales? And what does that trial look like? Let's bring in retired criminal defense attorney Kirk Nermy and talk about it. Kirk practiced in Arizona for many, many years. Cult mom Kirk, where do we start? Let's start first with her wanting to go pro se. Your thoughts on that?
It doesn't surprise me at all. You know, earlier when we were talking about Sarah Boone, we talked about image, right? And image is going to be important to the female narcissistic defendant like Lori Vallow seems to be. And we also think about her legal situation, right? She's already been convicted. She's spending life in prison based on the convictions of Idaho. And we know that whenever she has a chance to speak, it's about her image. It's about propping up her cult-like beliefs, right? So to me, I think she's probably having some conflict with her attorney. I know her former attorney is a good, competent attorney. He's probably telling her some of the things she wants to talk about aren't relevant, and she was going to try to use this trial as a forum to put forward her beliefs.
I think you're absolutely right, Kirk. The competency is then this other issue, right? So now it's being called into question. She's going to be evaluated. Would you speak to what's going to happen in this process, the type of evaluation, the standard, kind of what we can expect as it seems that the docket is noting the judge saying they call it the Rule 11 process in Arizona?
Yeah, very familiar with that process, Julie. One of the first things that happens is there is what they call a pre-screen evaluation, meaning 2 doctors will take a look at Miss Vallow, take a look at her records, but it's only a couple pages. It's not very in-depth. And if they agree that further evaluation is needed, and that's probably what happened in this case given the extensive record, then they refer it to a full evaluation. That's where the doctors take a more in-depth look at Miss Vallow's mental health, her history, medications, all those sort of things. They do an interview with her. They may even do an MMPI. They may do different things on her to decide whether or not she is competent or not. And then that full evaluation goes before a particularized court to decide whether she's competent to stand trial. One of the things I think is important is we're not talking about insanity here, just so people don't get confused. We're not talking about insanity as a defense, what have you. We're talking about just the competency to stand trial.
Right, Kirk, really appreciate that. Yeah, the here and now inquiry, today, is she competent to stand trial? Thank you for making that distinction. People get that confused all the time with insanity, where we look backwards to the offense date. Tell me, Kirk, so noted in the court docket is that the withdrawal of that attorney you noted who serves at the public defender's office, and the court notes that what's going to happen now is she'll get counsel appointed through the Office of Public Defense Services. Is this kind of like a conflict counsel office in Arizona? If you're aware, is it one of those offices that will take cases if the PD's office is conflicted out?
It is, Julie. So there's in Maricopa County, a huge court system. There's 3 indigent defense services with attorneys working. And then what happens if there's a conflict? And one of the things about a conflict that people should also understand is that if the one member of the public defender's office has a conflict, the entire public defender's office has a conflict. So they go outside of these indigent representation, and they have people that work under contract on an hourly basis with the county that will be assigned the case.
Which is great. Yeah, I remember, in law school, learning about conflicts. It's fascinating, as you noted, what you can do, your partner can do. What you can't do, your partner can't do. And just like in the offices that serve the public, yeah, that conflict bleeds through to everybody. So that's hard when,
in the burn pile murder trial, and I am keeping an eye on court TV right now to find out exactly what that verdict is. So let me go ahead and let this be known that this is breaking news. So and I'm gonna get it as it's happening right now. And we are waiting for the jury to come in as the verdict has been reached. Stand by, ladies and gentlemen.
She said that she had the credit card that the one my dad gave me and said never, hold on to this like the life depended on it. Because there were a lot of times my dad said, don't ever give her a credit card. And she had it. And I remember asking her,
They're going back over testimony from earlier in the trial.
straight up lie.
All right, Michael, a big day. We're waiting on that. We'll go back in when it starts. But in the meantime, I haven't had a chance to talk to you yet. What do you think it means, if anything, that they were hung a couple of hours ago and now we hear they have a verdict?
Yeah, I'm thinking about it as I found out there was a verdict, and I don't know which way it could have swung. All I can say is that I have questions.
15 hours, 24 minutes, 14 seconds. The jury has deliberated over the past few days, and a verdict has been reached, and we are just waiting for the jury to be to enter in and be seated, and the verdict to be published.
Afterwards, I'm not willing to buy the fact that she said it before. All those things are in play.
Now they're all in play. Here's a live bit. We see the defendant there seated as she waits for this jury to come back in. Jack Rice is with us. I'd love to bring you back in, Jack, knowing that we will all need to jump into court as soon as that begins. While we're waiting, though, I kind of rethought as we were watching that little clip of Scott's testimony. I personally don't find it credible what the jury finds, but I just wonder if
about his credibility as one witness, and you're talking about an alternate perpetrator. This credibility piece is critical for the jury because if they decide they don't believe him, they can not only reject everything that he says, he was also the state's star witness in many, many ways. That means it can taint the rest of the state's case. And that is a critical piece that I think the defense really worked to exploit.
While Court TV's Judge Ashley Wilcott and Michael Ayala are talking to their experts in criminal defense and former prosecutors, while we're still waiting for the jury to enter, so they can publish the verdict in the case against Melody Walker Ferris in Georgia.
Is because there's politics that go into play in these jury rooms. Lots of politics. They take a poll with a personal bag.
In fact, let me go ahead and set this up the way this should be.
They don't even know what the other person's thinking, so they take an immediate poll to see where they are. And then the politics start between jury members of one person trying to predict, convince somebody to take the position, right? Because we're all pigs, right? All of us want to be agreeable. Nothing would make me happier than if people tell me, hey, I agree with you. If somebody tells me I don't agree with you, I'll pretend it doesn't bother me, but it won't really bother me deep down. So if I'm in a jury setting, I'm going to want to convince other jurors of my position, and they're going to want to convince me of their positions. So I predicted that this would be a hung jury on day two only because of that, but I have never believed that they met their verdict. The state never showed me how, even in their theory of the case, how Melody Ferris' verdict.
Okay, so we should get that verdict in any minute now.
They just never showed it to me. And so for me, the case wasn't proven, but it might end up in a hung jury.
Well, I think we've had that hung jury notice once from the judge where he said, listen, you are tasked with going out, deliberating, and making, reaching a verdict, so that's what you're going to do. Now, what we're understanding is that it is a verdict, so it could be a mixed verdict, Michael, it could be a not guilty on all charges, or it could be a guilty on all charges.
Yeah, one of those instances where that apple charge worked.
Yeah.
And it often does.
Point.
And I would love to see what that dynamic was in the last couple of hours that took this jury from being off and feeling like they weren't going to get any closer, that they had to come and tell the judge they were off, to now having what we're assuming is an actual verdict.
Yeah, that's what we're assuming. We're going to wait and see, but it's a perfect time so you don't miss a thing to squeeze in a break so we can get back in that courtroom and be ready when the verdict is announced.
Now, when we come back, we're going to hear that phone call that they had asked for to hear between the two of them that I think really is at the center of this case. So keep it here on Court TV.
Okay, so they're going to break right now. Now, then, I'm gonna go ahead and continue with the coverage I was talking about with Lori Vallow Daybell wanting to represent herself in Arizona against the murder charges against her on that one. So stand by.
when there's so much service going on and so many people are being legally served by a particular office, and sometimes vetting them takes a long time to make sure that there is no conflict that exists. Kirk, tell me, when we think about Cult Mom and what she's doing, do you think this is for show? Do you think some of this is just to kind of go against the grain, so to speak?
Well, no, I think it goes back to what I said earlier. It's all about image, the presentation, right? Where Sarah Boone's not going to take a plea and accept guilt. Lori Vallow is going to use this trial as her platform, Julie. That's her goal.
Yeah. She's already infamous, as we know. Maybe she'll make friends with Jodi Heiress out in Arizona. Who knows? As long as they stay away from you, Kirk Nerving.
Who was that, Julie? I never heard of her.
Never heard of her. Yeah. Who are we talking about there?
This is where I put my 2 cents into this. Lori Vallow, do you know what the record is for murder defendants representing themselves in court and have a successful acquittal? Let me break it down for you. It's oh and forever. Your best chance is to have somebody who knows what they're talking about, somebody who knows what they're doing, to defend you. Because you trying to do it yourself could land you in bars, behind bars for the rest of your life, if you're lucky. Depending on the jurisdiction and the laws there. Let me give you the best worst case example. 2022. There was a Christmas parade. A man decides he's gonna run through that parade. He killed 6. He injured 62. He decided he was going to represent himself in court. What happened? He was found guilty on 6 counts of murder, 62 counts of aggravated assault, and he was sentenced to spend 6 consecutive life sentences behind bars, plus an additional 750 some odd years behind bars. So to say that he's not getting out anytime soon is an understatement. The guy is gonna rot behind bars. He will die in prison. Same is gonna happen to you. But hey, that's just my 2 cents on it. Alright, let me hide this. They're back, and the jury has reached a verdict in the Burn Pile murder trial. This is breaking news, and we are about to find out exactly just what that verdict is going to be in a matter of moments. Right now, they were going back over testimony involving a phone call, and I'm just saying right now, there should be the announcement of the verdict coming in just minutes. So hang right here. I'm looking ahead. And there should be an announcement of the verdict in a moment. All right, so I'm just pulling this up on my phone just to give you a bit of an idea. Melody Ferris is charged with shooting her husband Gary inside of their home and then burning his body on their Purcell Lane property. So we're waiting on that verdict at the moment, and as we're waiting on the verdict, I'm gonna go right on to the next story. Ah, this one right goes to the Justice Serve file, and I love when I have a story that goes right to the Justice Serve file. Now, I told you guys about a case where the defendant would serve certain life sentences without the possibility of parole. Well, this one is ranks right up there. Former cardiologist gets maximum sentence for drugging and raping women. Okay, now as we get that, I'm gonna go ahead and put up a trigger warning. I'm going to put up the trigger warning. Uh huh. And I'm gonna flash the second one here for you. That's to make sure I've got all bases covered. Okay. Here's the article. Through tears, troubling voices, and clear. Oh wait! Before I even get started, we're about to get that verdict right now. So hang tight, guys. I'll start that story over in just a minute. The jury has arrived. They're being seated, and we're getting the verdict right now.
Lots of folks here interested in the outcome of this case here. Also heard at least 6 Amber Alerts while I was buzzing in here. So if that happens, I'll just ignore it, pretend I didn't hear.
Is that your verdict? Is that your verdict in the jury room? Was it a verdict agreed to by you? And is it still your verdict? All right, you be seated. Number 7. All right, sir, was that your verdict in the jury room? Was the verdict agreed to by you? And is it still your verdict? All right, next. Number 14. All right, ma'am, was that your verdict in the jury room? Was the verdict agreed to by you? And is it still your verdict? All right, you may be seated. Number 28.
They are polling the jury as of right now. But it is official. Melanie Ferris has been found guilty of all charges in the death of her husband, Gary Ferris.
Sir, was that your verdict in the jury room? Was the verdict agreed to by you? And is that still your verdict?
And other than covering her mouth, Melanie Ferris is pretty much showing no emotion from what I'm looking at.
All right, ma'am, was that your verdict in the jury room? Was the verdict agreed to by you? And is it still your verdict?
All charges.
You be seated. Number 50. All right, ma'am, was that your verdict in the jury room? Was the verdict agreed to by you? And is it still your verdict? All right, next. Number 60.
Malice murder, felony murder,
Was the verdict agreed to by you? And is it still your verdict? All right, you be seated. Number 65. All right, sir, was that your verdict in the jury room? Is the
aggravated assault with a deadly weapon,
still your verdict? All right, you be seated. Number 71. All right, sir, was that your verdict in the jury room? Was the verdict agreed to by you? And is that still your verdict?
concealing the death of another,
All right, sir, was that your verdict in the jury room? Was the verdict agreed to by you? Is it still your verdict? All right, you may be seated. That's all for jurors. All right, anything else?
So there you have it.
All right.
Alright guys, so there you have it. Melanie Ferris guilty on all counts in the death of her husband, Gary Ferris. Found guilty of malice murder, felony murder, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and concealing the death of another. Whenever the sentencing date comes out, I will be sure to bring it to you here, and I will be covering the sentencing as well. Right now, let's go back to this story I put in the Justice Serve file. This cardiologist getting the maximum sentence for raping and drugging a woman. All right, let me go ahead and get myself set back up here like normal. Okay, here we go. Through tears, trembling voices, and clear anguish in court, a group of women shared their experiences of being drugged and sexually assaulted by a Denver cardiologist they had met on a dating app. But as evening fell outside the courtroom, there were tearful smiles and applause. Judge Eric Johnson sentenced Stephen Matthews, now 37, to get ready for this, folks. 158 years in prison, the maximum sentence. In mid-August, a jury found him guilty on all but 3 counts that were filed against him following his arrest in March 2023. In all, they totaled 35 counts, which included multiple sexual assault charges and second-degree assault, drugging, in connection with the drugging and sexual assaults of nearly a dozen women. His March 2023 arrest came after a woman reported to Denver police that she had been drugged during a date and sexually assaulted at the defendant's home. The following month, investigators said they believed Matthews had been involved in other incidents and urged any other potential victims to contact Denver police. Matthews was arrested again in May 2023 after 9 more women went to police with similar allegations, with some dating back to 2019. They said that they had met Matthews online, met the Drakes, and lost some of their memory of the aftermath. That's according to the arrest affidavit. I'm just gonna stop right here, but because it goes on, it goes on and on and on and on and on with each one testifying to what had happened, and Judge Johnson's statement. I will read because this is the last words that Matthews got to hear before he was taken into custody. Judge Johnson said, "It's late. I won't do a lot, except just to begin with. Contrary to other assertions, the evidence in this case is overwhelming. The evidence of guilt is patently overwhelming. And in here today, there is a room full of pain. And this is pain that you have caused your victims. So much suffering, none of it deserved. I also acknowledge in this room full of pain, your family, and that you have caused them to suffer. Your family had to hear the anger and the pain that you have caused victims directed at them. Your family just wanted to be proud of you and to love you. And they will still love you. Mom, stepfather, father. I get it. As a parent, they're always going to love you, but the shame you have brought on them will be a heavy burden that they will bear for the rest of their lives. I'm sure they raised you better. Mr. Matthews, you know you have diminished this world. You have dimmed many of its lights. You've hurt our society, and it's a darker place because of you. You brought disgrace upon yourself. You brought disgrace upon that name that was given to you, that was pure and clean the day your parents gave it to you. You even managed to ruin dating applications. I mean, what should have been technology with a really fun upside, the opportunity to meet people you couldn't otherwise meet, maybe fall in love, maybe have a family now. It's just something else for young girls and young women to fear as another danger zone. My understanding is that some of my jurors are listening. I want to thank you again for the service in this case. They sacrificed 1 month of their life to do their duty to our system under our Constitution. Their sacrifice cannot be appreciated enough. You listened to the evidence, you held the prosecution to their burden of proof, you did your duty, and I thank you. You know, Mr. Cohen, in your closing argument, you again mentioned that these women went to his apartment and they drank. Good Lord, I wish this trial had been videotaped, and I wish a tape of this trial could be played in every university, and that everybody in this country could watch it. Because we have been programmed to believe that victims will act a certain way, and if there's anything this case proved beyond guilt, beyond reasonable doubt, was that how we think victims are going to react is 100% wrong. How we think they should act is completely misguided, and if anybody thinks they know how they are going to react until they are faced with the pressure in that situation, you have no idea. You're completely wrong. Very briefly to the victims. I started my career out in Jefferson County, and this was not my case. But I was in the office when Detective Stacy Galbraith of the Golden Police Department and Detective Edna Hendershot of the Westminster Police Department believed a victim. I was in the courtroom when the judge sentenced Mark O'Leary, a serial rapist, and it's now a Netflix series called Unbelievable. And now I find myself having presided over this trial. I'll add Denver Detective Jennifer Lott and Detective Andrew Como to the names I will remember. You were heard, you were believed. The verdict says that, and the Venn diagram between not proven and innocent is not a circle. As I sit up here in this room, I am not Eric Johnson. I represent the law. I represent the rule of law. I represent society. And it does fall to me to hand out punishment, and a punishment that is commensurate with the social contract breaches you have so egregiously done. I will sentence. I cannot heal. Many of you are here for closure. I hate to disappoint you, but I will not be able to provide you closure. Closure will come from within. It will come from you. It will come from your family. The best thing you can do is live well, be happy, and I wish you peace. These women were strangers to you. Or at the very least, you promoted the relationship primarily for the purpose of sexual victimization. And finally, given the totality of the evidence in this case, I find it not difficult at all to believe that you would subsequently commit one or more offenses if you were released. So, you are deemed a sexually violent predator. There was a lot of talk by Mr. Cohen about proportionality. And I acknowledge that when we start talking about some of these numbers, it does start to sound silly. But then, when we put that into perspective, the reality is we don't have truth in sentencing. And he's probably looking at doing 35% of his time. So that's some other way to look at that and put things into perspective when considering multiple consecutive sentencing. So it's easy to get lost in the weeds of 200, 100. But when we look at one woman, 12 years is an infinitely reasonable sentence. So with that, he sentenced him to 158 years. 158 years behind bars. He's 37 now. They're saying he could do about 35% of the time he is sentenced. If he gets out, let me look at this. Let me do a little mathematics real quick here. Get my calculator. 158 times 0.35 plus give his current age. If he gets out, and I say this strongly, if he gets out, he'll be 92 years of age. 92. If not, then forget it. He's gonna die in prison. And the way and after reading that, after reading the judge's statement, justice served. Next on the docket, we have a man who pleaded guilty to the kidnapping and murder of Heiress Eliza Fletcher. Tennessee man pleaded guilty to kidnapping a Memphis schoolteacher while she was on an early morning run and then killing her. The gentleman right here on your right hand side of your screen, Cleotha Abston, entered guilty pleas to first-degree murder and especially aggravated kidnapping in the abduction and death of Eliza Fletcher. 40-year-old Abston has been set to stand trial in February. Prosecutors said they would seek the death penalty if Abston were convicted of first-degree murder. Instead, Judge Lee Coffey sentenced Abston to life in prison without parole after he entered the guilty pleas. Fletcher was grabbed from a street while she was jogging before dawn near the University of Memphis on September 2nd, 2022, and forced into an SUV. Her body was found days later near a vacant duplex. The killing of Fletcher, a 34-year-old kindergarten teacher and mother of two, shocked the Memphis community and led to a flood of support for her family. Runners in Memphis and several other cities held morning running events in her honor a week after she was abducted, a tradition that has continued in the city on the anniversary of her kidnapping. In a statement, Fletcher's family said they missed the bright light of Liza's life every day. And this is Eliza right here. Liza meant so much to so many, and her smile radiated happiness, energy, and comfort. Her family said her husband, her children, her parents, her brother, the rest of her family, her friends, her students, her school families, her fellow teachers, her church community, and so many others were moved by countless examples of her faith, kindness, and compassion. Abston, who was also going by the name Cleopa Henderson, was arrested after police detected his DNA on sandals found near the location where Fletcher was last seen. An autopsy report showed Fletcher died of a gunshot wound to the head. We had been meeting with him regularly for the past few months and have been telling him that we need to settle this case. That we cannot go forward with a trial and expect to succeed, said Judy Ganguly, Abston's lawyer. Abston was sentenced to 80 years in prison on May 17th for raping a woman a year before he was charged in Fletcher's death. He was convicted in April of raping the woman while holding her at gunpoint in September 2021. Abston, whose history of criminal charges dates back to the 1990s when he was a juvenile, was not charged in the 2021 rape case until after being charged a year later with killing Fletcher because of the long delay in processing the sexual assault kit. After Fletcher's death, the legislature passed a law requiring the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation to issue a quarterly report on sexual assault kit testing times. So I guess we can say that this one goes into the Justice Serve file as well. Cleopa Abston being sentenced to life in prison. So, let me go ahead and start taking names down. Cleopa Abston and Stephen Matthews. Alright, why am I taking those names down? Because looks like I will have a last rights segment after all. Alright. Let's keep going down the docket. Lindsay Shiver has been taken back into custody after a judge revoked her bond, finding that she violated the conditions of her release. Not good. A former beauty queen accused of masterminding a plot to kill her husband is back behind bars after a judge revoked her bond. Lindsay Shiver is accused of plotting with her boyfriend Terrence Bethel and another man, Ferron Newbold, to kill her then husband, former Auburn football player Robert Shiver. Lindsay faces charges in the Bahamas, where she and her husband had a second home, and where she allegedly began her affair with Bethel. After pleading not guilty, Lindsay was released from jail on bond. Now, Lindsay is back in jail after a judge found that she violated the conditions of her release and ordered her back into custody. That's according to the Nassau Guardian, and Court TV sources have confirmed this. One of the conditions of her release and travel to the United States was that she wore an ankle monitor and lived at her parents' home in Alabama. However, data from the ankle monitor introduced in court showed that Lindsay had changed her address without court approval, again according to the Nassau Guardian. In one incident, Lindsay was away from her house. She was allegedly attacked by a different boyfriend, Dorsey Ryan Love. In August, Lindsay accused Love of shoving her onto a bed, choking her, and trying to suffocate her. That's according to WTVY. In the Bahamas, the judge ruled that Lindsay should be taken into custody both for the violations and for her own safety. While the judge initially stayed the order for Lindsay to file an appeal, sources confirmed to Court TV's Matt Johnson that both she and Bethel were taken into custody. They will likely remain in custody for at least a week until there is an emergency bail hearing. Well, as far as her safety goes, this may be a smart move by the judge. As far as flat out jury violations of her release on bond, that's not a smart move, Lindsay. I'm just saying. All right, next up, we've got the phone calls from Stephen Stearns talking about Madeline Soto. Looks like I may have to pull the trigger warning up again. Yep. Okay. Here's what I'm gonna do. I am going to go ahead and put that trigger warning back up. Let it scroll across the screen. I am going to flash this copyright warning, copyright disclaimer, and you are going to get to hear this jailhouse phone call between Stephen Stearns and his parents regarding Maddie Soto.
What are the sleeping arrangements?
He sleeps in.
Okay. Did she sleep in her bed Sunday night?
No. I was just back. I'd been away for a couple months. We in the same bed together, so we get some serious sleep. So she said no to that and suggested that the guest room upstairs had been enough of that. So it's a little cut of time that would suffice for Jim to get to sleep in peace.
So you say snuggle time, what does that mean?
I like to be alone. She's extremely dependent. She does not like to be alone at all. She needs human presence around her.
Well, that was murder defendant Stephen Stearns during his police interrogation, telling detectives about his cuddle time with his alleged victim, Madeline Soto. Stearns faces murder charges in the death of 13-year-old Madeline Soto. The murder charges are accompanied by more than 60 child sex abuse charges regarding Madeline as well. A new jail call between Stearns and his parents was released. And in that lengthy call, they press him about some of the allegations against him. Take a listen to this short clip.
Happy birthday, belated birthday, Mom, and happy belated Mother's Day.
Hi, sweetheart. I was so hoping to hear from you. I'm so glad I'm hearing from you now.
Yeah, I'm sorry I wasn't able to call you all weekend. They had us on lockdown, so no one was able to do anything.
Were you expecting these charges?
No.
The murder charge.
Oh, well,
okay, so you got blindsided by that.
Yeah. Obviously, it's not true. I never would have wanted her gone for any reason, so, premeditated first degree is kind of a dick punch.
Yeah.
No, I was wondering if you had any updates or anything.
Nope, we haven't heard a thing. Just, speculation that she's been
hiding,
put in an institution and hiding in an institution.
At her lawyer's request.
Yeah.
I mean, are you cooperating with police about her participation in any of this stuff?
There's been no opportunity for me to cooperate with anything. As I understand, the police keep saying that I'm uncooperative, but they haven't asked me anything to cooperate with, so whatever that means.
So your attorney isn't approaching them and saying, my client would like to speak with you?
No, my attorneys are pretty much saying to keep my mouth shut until the trial starts.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know why they were going to wait till the trial, but that's their business, not mine.
They don't want anything to hurt my chances.
Yeah, understand.
Obviously, there's concerns that they're artificially inflating everything up as high as they can possibly do it.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the plan is there. If they're just trying to scare me into pleading down, or I don't know.
No, they're not.
Okay.
They're just trying to hurt me as much as possible.
Are you able to share the Saturday night before you left for Kidnapping? You were pretty upset about something. Did it have to do anything with Kidnapping and the events that took place the next couple of days?
No.
Okay.
No, I was just stressed out about money and job and everything like that.
Some woman got on a YouTube thing and said that you weren't even at the party.
Party?
Yeah, her birthday party.
Yeah, I haven't gotten there yet. I went up there Sunday evening and got there after she was done at her party.
Oh, okay.
And we were very happy that I was there. We were very happy that the three of us were together. It was shaping up to be a great week and a great visit. There's no reason for anything to happen that happened.
Is there some explanation of I came up Wednesday morning, actually at the hotel, early in the morning, and is there some explanation why you left and went where you went?
I was driving around.
Okay. Understood you were driving around, but they know where you were driving around.
Yeah.
And we know.
Okay. I had wanted to grab a few things and get my ducks in a row, kind of prepare myself for whatever was coming, but I couldn't find what I was looking for.
All right, so he had gone to his dad's storage unit. He wasn't supposed to be able to get in, according to the father, but he did. He was looking for something. That's what he said. They took cadaver dogs by there. There was some reaction, but nothing that sort of hit as maybe a body over there. So that was that. Let's bring in our guest still with us, criminal defense attorney Robin Nunn, national trial attorney Michael Jafer as well. Robin, I'll start with you. It's clear, I mean, the parents know what they know. They know where he was driving. They know what the police kind of know at this point. And I guess it's kind of sad because you kind of see dad feeling around to see what his son will tell him. Because in their heart of hearts, I feel like they know what happened here.
Yeah, it was a very sad conversation to listen to, quite frankly. You can obviously see two parents that are hurting, that are trying to get information from their son that they clearly believe is hiding something. And it seems pretty obvious from the phone call that he indeed is. The language that's being used isn't really natural. It's a bit cryptic at times, which makes me believe that, all the individuals on that call know a little bit more than they're willing to share or want to share. Everybody knows that those phone calls are recorded generally. So I think that they're being a tad bit careful. But at the end of the day, you can tell that the father does want to understand and hear from his son as far as what actually happened that day.
Yeah, Michael Schaefer, it's got to be heartbreaking. The father actually turned over a hard drive that had been in his home to the police, and on that there was like 35,000 pictures of child pornography. Now, I don't know how much the father would know if he looked at it or if he just turned it over. I would tend to say parents kind of know their children on some level, but your reaction to what you were hearing on that phone call?
I was just gonna say what you said, which is the father seems to me like a pseudo investigator in this case. I don't like his behavior, to be quite frank with you. I was gonna say that he turned over the hard drive. He volunteered it. Nobody asked him for it. He volunteered it, and now he's on this phone call. You see the mom. She's not acting like an investigator. She's not trying to trip her son up into words. Look, there's two universes. There's a universe where Stephen Stearns did this, and a universe where he didn't do it. We obviously don't know specifically which universe we live in, but we live in one of the two. Whichever one of the two we live in. If we live in the universe where he didn't do it, hypothetically speaking, then the father's behavior is awful. If we live in the universe where he did do it, then the father's behavior is still awful, because at the end of the day, you got to have let your son out there, let him fight himself through. And if the evidence is overwhelming, if the evidence is beyond a reasonable doubt, it's going to convict him, he's going to convict him. But for him to be on that call and he was kind of waiting to pounce on his son, he didn't even say hi or anything. He just jumped in. Hey, what were you doing? Why were you upset? What if some of these things have a legitimate answer? What if they do? What if they don't? Either way, I don't like the way. It wouldn't be shocking to me if the father testifies against his own son on behalf of the state at this point, right? So.
Yeah, I felt anger from the father, and I can certainly understand it, because again, I think there might be some inkling in his mind that he knows that his son just quite isn't right, and he's angry. Yeah. I hear that. Mom is a little bit more protective, but Dad's angry. All right.
Maybe everybody has a point on this one, but all I know is that that this man, Stephen Stearns, is one sick individual, and he's going to have a lot to answer for when his trial comes up. And still, I still say that Jennifer Soto has a lot to answer for as well. Because apparently she's saying she knows nothing. Well, we'll see exactly just how much she really knows as this case drags on. Alright, next up. Juliana Perez Margales pleaded guilty to manslaughter in the February 2023 shooting death of Joseph Ryan. Now, she's opted to take a plea deal. And there's body cam footage released in that case too. So let me go ahead. Hit the copyright disclaimer scroll, and I'm gonna let you look at this and see for yourself before I give you the details in that case.
All right, Court TV has also obtained body cam footage of police responding to the scene after receiving that 911 call. Take a look at this.
You got that. You got that.
The dog's like, so somebody's outside. Someone's outside in the back?
In the back?
There's a dog in the back. Anyone else outside?
Huh?
Who else is outside?
Nobody's outside.
Anyone here?
My room. And here.
Stay here.
Hey,
Stay over here.
who is the shooter?
Who shot who?
Brendan, he's an officer.
I got a blowout kit if you need it.
Bring it up.
Is there anyone else in the house? Any kids in the house? Okay.
Yeah. I'll hold down here.
Okay.
Bring her down here. We can get info directly from her.
Hey, help me.
Can you come down with me?
Anyone has any blowout kit? She's breathing. She's got a lot of stab wounds.
I think Zach just said
My
We're getting the ambulance here now.
my host kid is downstairs.
Okay.
I'm in here.
How old's your host kid?
She's 4.5.
4.5. Where is she?
I need to talk to her. She doesn't know anything. What?
Can we get her and we'll go outside?
Can I get her?
No, not the shooter. I think he's upstairs.
Where do we look?
Upstairs.
She's grabbing their 4-year-old. We're gonna go outside.
Okay, perfect.
Just
It's okay.
She's just 4.5.
I know this is hard. Let's get her outside, and then I need to get some information from you.
Hi, Val.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey, I'm Officer Bell. Nice to meet you. Do you want to go outside with us?
We need to go outside, okay?
Let's go.
Come here. Come here. I'm gonna take this
Yeah, whatever you need to do. What's your name?
Juliana. Valerie.
Valerie? Here. Come on, Valerie.
Okay, so you're with him. Okay.
All right, let's get outside, okay? Hi, Valerie. It's okay. Just breathe, okay? Here, let's go out this way. Oh. Hey, do you want to hang out with that officer right there?
Slide back around front corner.
To take over? Good. Still breathing.
Fine.
Still breathing.
Still breathing?
Hey.
Do you want me to put her to watch a show or something?
If you just want to tell me quickly what happened,
I don't really know what happened. Everything happened too fast. I was going to the zoo this morning.
Can you go with Officer Bettani really quick?
Why don't you come with us?
He has some stickers for you.
I was going to take her to the zoo this morning. And then I forgot the lunch we were going to bring. I turned around and came back here. And then I saw this car.
You don't know who that? Do you know who the person is?
I have no idea. And then also his car called her to see what's going on because early in the morning, like, who was here? And then he was dispatched a voicemail. I called Brendan, it's her husband. He's up there. I told him, I see a strange car, but I don't know who's that. Can you please come here? I'm scared. I was with Valerie in the car. And then he came here, and then we went inside. The guy, I don't know who it is, he was spanking her. I was just here.
Were you here when it happened, or did you walk up in there and
No,
that's how they were?
yeah, he went upstairs first, and then I went to see what is going on. I left Valerie in the basement, and then when I went upstairs, Brendan was saying, "Oh, let's drop the knife."
So, Brendan's a police officer.
Yeah, he's an officer.
Is he with Fairfax?
No.
Where's he an officer?
I don't know. I think he was officer in Vienna.
Vienna?
Yeah.
Okay. 1 second.
I'm going to get...
Okay.
Do you need anything else right now?
Not right now. The guy who shot is they think a Vienna police officer. So we got to think about that. That car, we don't know who. That's the guy who came up here that started the issue. This car is the outside guy. Silver car.
These two.
So this is their car. That is the guy who came here.
Okay.
then it was because they were yelling at each other. He was saying like, drop the. I'm sorry, my first language is not.
No, you're doing really well.
He was saying drop the.
The knife or the gun?
The gun. And Brenda said, no, please don't drop the knife. And then he was saying, I'm gonna kill her. And I don't know if he started stabbing her. I think Brenda shot him. And he asked me help to shot him too because...
It's okay. You don't have to get it all out right now.
I never saw her before. Like,
you didn't see the girl before either? So the guy and the girl you don't know?
She's my boss.
Okay.
He's Valerie's mom. But I never seen it before. Like, there's a lot of blood.
All right, Judge, we know now that was a bit of an act.
Yeah.
But even without that knowledge, I wasn't quite buying her
I
act.
wasn't either. I thought it was a little over the top and it really didn't seem authentic. So I remember seeing it and being like, oh, I think she's involved.
A little bit of a roll of the eyes there.
That's the point I probably would have said, give that woman an Emmy. Anyway, here's the breakdown. Now, Juliana Perez Magales pleaded guilty to manslaughter in the February 24, 2023 shooting death of Joseph Ryan, Steve Descano. That's according to the Fairfax County Commonwealth Attorney, Steve Descano. He said the information that led to the agreement could not be made public due to the upcoming trial of Brendan Banfield. Last month, Banfield was indicted in the deaths of Ryan and his wife, Christine Banfield. Investigators have said the murders were part of a larger scheme between Brendan and Magales, who were having an affair. Magales was hired as an au pair for the Banfield family. On the day of the killings, Magales called 911 at least 3 times, hanging up twice before reporting the emergency on the 3rd call. Brendan then spoke into the phone and said he shot a man because that man stabbed his wife. That was according to the Associated Press report. Prosecutors said Brendan and Magales continued their relationship after the killings. Magales was arrested in October 2023 for the death of Ryan, and she was set to face trial this month. So whatever the plea deal is, however much time she's going to serve, I guess that's a case of justice served, I guess. And now it's time once again for another edition of Did He Do It? Alright. On this edition, Sean Diddy Combs is accused in one of 2 lawsuits filed of drugging and sexually assaulting a 10-year-old boy in a New York City hotel room in 2005. The second lawsuit accused the jail hip-hop mogul of similarly assaulting a 17-year-old would-be contestant on the reality TV series Making the Man in 2008. The lawsuits filed in the state Supreme Court of New York are the latest in a wave of lawsuits in which accusers allege they were sexually assaulted by Combs at parties and meetings over the last 2 decades. Combs' lawyers denied the 2 new claims and accused the plaintiff's lawyer, Anthony Busby, who also represents the accusers in earlier lawsuits, of seeking publicity. Mr. Combs and his legal team have full confidence in the facts and the integrity of the judicial process, an email statement said. In court, the truth will prevail, that Mr. Combs never sexually assaulted or trafficked anyone, man or woman, adult or minor. 54-year-old Combs is incarcerated in a New York City jail after pleading not guilty to federal sex trafficking charges contained in an indictment unsealed the day after his September 16th arrest. The charges include allegations he coerced and abused women and silenced victims through blackmail and violence. The 10-year-old boy, who was not identified in the lawsuit, was an aspiring actor and rapper who had traveled with his parents from California from meetings with music industry representatives. During what was supposed to be an audition for Combs, he was given a drug-laced soda by a Combs associate and sexually assaulted by the Bad Boy Records founder, according to the lawsuit. The boy eventually lost consciousness. When he awoke, Combs threatened to badly hurt the child's parents if he told anyone what happened, the filing said. In a second lawsuit, a 17-year-old unidentified male said Combs forced him into sexual acts with Combs and a bodyguard during a 3-day audition for the Making the Band television show, which Combs produced. When the aspiring contestant expressed reservations, he was eliminated from the competition and unable to return to the music industry for 7 years, according to the filing. Both lawsuits were brought under New York City's Victims Gender-Motivated Violence Protection Act, which allows survivors to bring lawsuits even if the statute of limitations has passed. Like I said before, one may be wrong, two might be wrong, but over 100, that's impossible. So, when we get more information, you can join us again for another edition of Diddy Do It? Next on the docket, an ex-Marine faces a murder trial in girlfriend's strangulation death. This trial is ongoing. But instead of me doing a full on read of the article, I'm going to take you to Court TV's Ted Rollins as he breaks down the case.
Let's go back now to California, where we've been watching you some of the key moments from a preliminary hearing in a case against defendant Raymond McLeod. He's a former Marine accused of brutally murdering his girlfriend and fleeing the country. We're going to pick it up now with testimony from Justin Sadell. He's a friend of McLeod's who McLeod and victim Crystal Mitchell were visiting and staying with on the night that she died. Take a listen.
When you left the house, had you seen the defendant or Crystal?
No.
Had you heard the defendant or Crystal?
No.
Did you attempt to contact them at that point?
I don't believe that I attempted to contact them before I left. It was maybe 9 o'clock in the morning, which is not early, but if you're out drinking, that can be kind of an earlier time. So I don't recall talking with them or messaging them or anything to that effect that morning.
When you left the house to go play volleyball and then go to your school project somewhere and coming home to the apartment, had you had any communication with the defendant?
No.
Or with Crystal?
No.
What happened when you arrived home?
Arrived home late, early afternoon, I would say, maybe between 12 and 1 o'clock. That's a guess on the time. There was no one out, no sound of any kind. I figured they were either still sleeping or the vehicle was there, I believe, so I didn't think that they had left. So I thought that they were probably still in the bedroom.
At that point, what did you decide to do?
Knocked on the door to the bedroom, and I didn't hear anything. I imagine I would have probably knocked several times, and not getting a response. I don't remember this for sure, but I'm imagining at that point I would have maybe cracked the door and said hello or something, and still didn't hear anything.
You say you don't remember for sure. Are you saying it's difficult to remember step-by-step details about the idea of knocking and opening the door?
Yes, ma'am, exactly right.
But is it fair to say that you remember knocking and at some point opening the door?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. What happened when you opened the door?
I opened the door and I saw Crystal in on the left side of the bed. She was mostly covered with a sheet, and she had one of her arms up in a kind of an awkward position for someone who would have been sleeping, almost straight up in what seemed to be a very unnatural position for someone who was sleeping.
Let me stop you right there. When you say straight up, do you mean in the air? Resting on the bed? Can you sort of give us a better description of what you're seeing as you walk in?
Yes, laying on the bed, but the arm was neither laying on the bed nor on the pillow nor resting comfortably on her body. It was up at maybe a 45-degree angle, again in an awkward position for someone who was sleeping. It became clear to me very quickly that she was deceased.
You testified earlier that you slept throughout the entire night. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. You did not hear any yelling that night?
I did not.
You did not hear any screaming that night?
No.
You did not hear any kind of physical altercation that night?
No.
And I am assuming that because you have training and you served as a Marine, you're familiar with combat and you're keenly aware of what fighting looks like and what it sounds like. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, and you're also an EMT. But on that night, you told the police specifically that you didn't hear a thing. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And you didn't notice a thing. Is that correct?
Correct.
If you would have heard screaming, would you have gone into that room and checked?
Absolutely.
If you had heard yelling, would you have gone into that room and checked?
Objection, relevance?
I'll allow the answer. Go ahead, sir.
Yes.
Okay, that's the friend on the stand. He opted not to be on camera. That's why we didn't get to see him while he was answering those questions. Philip DeBate's still with us. At the end of the day, a jury, that video of them walking into the elevator, he's got his hand on her neck. I'm not sure I see this defense as being anything other than infuriation from a jury member, especially a woman or a guy like me, a father of two daughters. I mean, I don't want this guy out to meet another beautiful woman. And it just, the whole rough sex thing is, please, give me a break. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it wasn't a love tap. It wasn't AI. It wasn't a reality TV episode. This is a hostile dude, grabbing his girl by the throat. To me, that was a foreshadow of more to come. And I'm surprised she didn't start screaming then and try to fight her way out of that elevator. What was so hot about this guy that she decided to put up with it and go up with him to the room? It's crazy, It's not to suggest by any means that she had it coming or wanted it, but certainly that is a foreshadow. We saw shades of this, Ted, with Courtney Clenny. Remember the fighting going on in the elevator between her and the boyfriend? And he's only trying to restrain her, not hurting her, but he's the one who ends up dead. It kind of logically flows from this type of publicly displayed aggression that someone's really going to get hurt, if not lose their life. So I think this ex-Marine is in some pretty dire straits right now. I think he's going to be held to answer at a minimum and be ordered to stand trial.
Yeah, the preliminary hearing not a huge hurdle for the state, given just the evidence that they have. The other relationships that he's had, he's been accused of domestic violence. Will the jury hear that?
Yes, California has a specific statute in the evidence code, unless the court excludes it because it's too prejudicial. In other words, if the effect of it would cloud the jury's objective ability to assess probative evidence, then the court can exclude it. But generally speaking, prior acts of domestic violence are an exception to the rule against character evidence in criminal trials in California if they are related to domestic relations. So no judge is going to exclude that. So he's going to have to get up there or have somebody explain away the behavior or somehow play it down.
It's unfortunate this trial is not being broadcast on Court TV, but I will keep up with it and bring you all the new information that will lead to a verdict in the case. So when I get it, you guys will get it here at Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. Next up, the judge has set a trial date for Dale Warner, who was accused of the death of his wife, Dee Warner. All right. Okay, I'll go briefly from the article, and then you're gonna get the video courtesy of Court TV, your front row seat to justice. A Michigan man is accused of murdering his wife and hiding her remains in a tank, and he will stand trial next year. A judge set a September 2nd, 2025 trial date for Dale Warner. He previously pleaded not guilty to charges of open murder and tampering with evidence of the death of Dee Warner. Dee was last seen on April 25th, 2021 at her home in Tecumseh. In November 2023, Dale was arrested and charged for her murder. Her remains were located until August 2024, when authorities conducted a search on property in Lenawee County belonging to Dale. Dee's family told Scripps News Detroit that her remains were found in a sealed tank that was used to hold anhydrous ammonia. At the time of the discovery, there was no ammonia in the tank, and it was closed on both ends. So now here's that. Okay, now here's that breakdown.
Turning now to Michigan, where a September trial date has been set for the husband accused of murdering his wife and then putting her body in a sealed tank.
I am aware there's been some communication regarding scheduling trial dates, and it looks like the parties have agreed on a trial commencing September 2nd of 2025 and running through October 14th of 2025. Is that accurate?
That's correct, Your Honor. That is correct.
Okay.
Defendant Dale Warner is charged with murder and tampering with evidence related to his wife's death. Dee Warner was last seen in 2021. Dale told his family that he thought his wife had run off with another man. 3 years later, her remains were found sealed in an old ammonia tank on Dale's property. Here's Scripps News Detroit with a closer look at the case.
We're at the final resting place where we found Dee's body entombed in one of these anhydrous tanks.
It's Dee Warner's sister-in-law, Shelley Hardy, who took us to this barn. What was planned to be Dee Warner's final resting place by someone. Family believes that 3.5 years ago, when Dee disappeared, her husband Dale Warner brought a smaller tank, just like one of these, inside of this barn. They believe that he took off the front part, put Dee's remains inside, and then welded it shut. It was Shelley's husband, Dee's brother Greg, who tipped police off recently that they should look inside.
It was certainly tough for the family to face my sister's remains in a man-made tomb done by Dale Warner, who was a very evil piece of human debris.
Greg Hardy and one of Dee's daughters, Raquel Bach, addressed the media regarding the findings on Thursday, one day after the medical examiner identified them as Dee. In the years since Dee went missing, thousands have continued to look for clues, including the group Justice for Dee, which the family partially attributed this recent break in the case to.
We cannot begin to thank you guys enough for sticking by our side and believing in us when we didn't want to believe in ourselves anymore.
The family is very open about their belief that Dee's husband Dale killed her. Any true closure for this family will be a long time coming. But at least now, Dee's body and any rumor that she ran away can finally be laid to rest.
Her spirit's gone a long ways.
I think we knew that spirit and we weren't going to give up on her. We were going to fight to the end, and we're still going to fight to the end, see that she gets her justice due.
All right, let's bring in trial attorney, former prosecutor Sue Ann Robinson, and trial attorney and former public defender Gabrielle Higgins. Gabrielle, I'll start with you. I'm happy for the family, there's no doubt, to find the body. You know, it's sad, the situation, but to have the body, I think, means everything, as you saw, to that family. My question is, what took so long? I mean, when she went missing, they searched all over. Someone had to know that there were tanks somewhere on this property that belonged to the guy who was the main suspect, obviously. That would be one of the first places I'd look.
No, I agree. It seems deliberate. It's almost like there's a glaring place that you should search, and it feels like willful blindness. It feels like there was a choice to avoid this area, and I'm interested to see why that choice was made. It is unfortunate that the body that this woman had to suffer in this way, and that her body had to be found in such an awful place. And I think that regardless, the family won't be made whole until they get the answers they deserve.
Yeah, and you could see the anger of the father of the victim about who this guy is. And it turns out, not surprisingly, Sue Ann, that there was domestic violence in this family. You don't have to look much further than that when that type of situation exists.
Right, and it's very sad. Again, the backdrop of a complicated domestic situation that led to such a tragedy. I mean, to take a page from your book, Michael Ayala, to be the devil's advocate, the tanks look very significant. So I could see at the time them initially needing some additional materials or some additional equipment. But as Attorney Higgins said, you absolutely would look under those types of materials to see if someone possibly hid evidence under those. But I'm glad that the family is getting closure, for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. And apparently they were able to see the body using x-rays. So you didn't even have to open them to know that something was in there. They used x-rays and saw the body on the x-rays, and that's what led them to open it. So really interesting stuff there. All right, Gabrielle, where does the defense go in this case? The evidence clearly stacking up against this guy. They were going to try him for murder anyway. They were going to get her declared dead, but now that they have the body, it just adds to the problem, especially the fact that it was found on the property.
Yeah, I think that all you can do is argue reasonable doubt when your hands are tied in such an open and shut case like this. I think the issue is not only was the body found on his property, but also couple that with the history of their relationship and the tumultuous nature of it. It just, you have motive, you have opportunity, and now you have a crime scene. So it doesn't look right for the defense.
Yeah, no doubt. Means, motive, and opportunity all exist there for this defendant.
And again, that case will take place on September 25th. Oh, I know. I'll take it back. September 2nd, 2025. When that case starts being covered, I will cover it here as well. Next up, a 14-year-old pleads no contest after her grandmother was fatally beaten. 14-year-old Sophia Koval charged as an adult with manslaughter in the May 23rd death of her 79-year-old grandmother. What is going on here? A teenager will serve her sentence in Florida's juvenile justice system after pleading no contest to beating her grandmother to death. 14-year-old Sylvia Koval was charged as an adult with manslaughter in the May 23rd death of her 79-year-old grandmother. Koval entered a plea of no contest in a plea agreement. Both sides worked out an agreement that Koval would serve a sentence in the juvenile justice system's maximum risk program for up to 3 years, followed by a conditional release until she reaches the age of 21. The judge warned that violating any terms of her release could expose her to adult prison and a sentencing range for manslaughter of 10 to 15 years. Her father, Vladimir Koval, gave a victim impact statement speaking in broken accented English, honoring his mother and describing his family's many challenges. Vladimir called that his mother was born in Nazi-occupied France in 1944, then returned to Ukraine, where despite the difficulties of living under a dictatorship, she educated herself and became a kindergarten teacher. His mother overcame health issues, which included cancer, and came to the United States to live with him after his father died in 2015. He bemoaned how she overcame so many health challenges only to die in such a gruesome manner at the hands of her own granddaughter. A grief that will stay with me till the end of my life, stated Vladimir. He also noted the many challenges Sophia had to overcome after the war in Ukraine forced his daughter out of school, and being home alone while her mother worked affected her childhood. He said Sophia created her own drama, complaining about bullying, attempted rape, drug abuse. None of the incidents could be confirmed, but acknowledged this was a red flag. Sophia had a very difficult time to adjusting to life in the United States and often yearned for her mother. Despite his efforts to make life as comfortable as possible for his daughter, there were behavioral issues at school, repeated reports of bullying, and she did not sleep at night. Vladimir said he tried to get her psychiatric help, but even with his insurance, he could not afford mental health treatment for his daughter. Vladimir told the judge his heart is in pain as he has lost his mother and daughter, but wanted his daughter to know he still loved her and hoped she could forgive herself. Sophia sat in the jury box and wiped away tears as she listened to her father's statement. Sophia made no further statements except to respond through her interpreter that she understood she was giving up her rights to appeal and a trial with her plea, and waived her right to present to a pre-sentencing report. So to recap again, she is going to be sentenced to 3 years in the juvenile justice system's maximum security program, followed by a conditional release until she reaches the age of 21. If she violates those conditions, she could go to she could end up in adult prison, serving the range for manslaughter of 10 to 15 years. We'll see what becomes of that. Next up, Katrina Bauer pleads not guilty in the death of 3-year-old Elijah Vu. Let's go back to Court TV for Katrina Bauer's arraignment.
Turning to Wisconsin, where the mother of 3-year-old Elijah Vu pleaded not guilty to charges in connection to her son's death. Katrina Bauer appeared over Zoom from jail during today's hearing. Her defense attorney entered the not guilty plea to 2 felony charges and 2 misdemeanors.
It looks like the state has filed an information earlier today. Attorney Gratz, have you received that document?
I have, Your Honor.
And do you waive reading?
Yes, it does reflect the same counts that are in the criminal complaint, so we would waive any formal reading, reserve jurisdictional or other objections, and enter not guilty pleas.
All right, is Ms. Bauer wishing to exercise her right of substitution?
We did discuss that, and she is not.
All right, the not guilty pleas will be received.
Now, last month, Elijah Vu's remains were found on private property in the town of Two Rivers, Wisconsin. And then soon after, both Bauer and her boyfriend, Jesse Vang, were slammed with additional charges in the toddler's death. Bauer now faces charges of chronic neglect of a child resulting in death, neglecting a child, and resisting or obstructing an officer.
Vang is charged with physical abuse of a child, repeated acts causing death, hiding a corpse, and resisting or obstructing an officer. Bauer was granted a $400,000 cash bond, and Vang was granted a $500,000 cash bond. Both were previously arrested on multiple child neglect charges after Vu was reported missing back in February.
The seriousness of this is beyond discussion. I should note, though, that Mr. Vang has been unable to post the cash previously set and remind the community that bail is not punishment. Bail is to assure his appearances.
In a criminal complaint against Bauer and Vang, investigators detailed several incidents of neglect and abuse, including a healing skull fracture that dates back to the time of his death.
A child abuse pediatrician noted that, quote, the history provided by caregivers to law enforcement and messages to each other is consistent with torture. Bauer faces up to 60 years in prison if convicted, and Vang could get life in prison.
All right, let's bring back in criminal defense attorney Silva Megadichian to discuss. Silva, you know, when I read the facts of this case, found out a lot more today. There's a lot of texting going on between mom and Jesse Vang in this case. One of the reasons she was sending him over to this guy because she wanted a male presence in his life, because this little guy apparently was putting on his sister's clothes and walking around on his tippy toes. I just see this as just the ultimate betrayal. This is a child who relies on his mother, and his mother's sending him to this guy who's doing, and he's telling him what the types of things that he's doing. It's just the worst.
Yeah, Michael, these cases, I think even as defense attorneys, we have problems even defending them. Everyone deserves a defense. But it reminds me, in California, we had 2 high-profile cases in Lancaster, California, where these 2 angelic little boys were viciously killed and tortured by their mother and, at that time, either stepfather or boyfriend. I think for jurors too, these cases, they stay with you for the rest of your existence on the planet, because you wonder how and why. There are no words. People always ask me, how do you do what you do? And I always say, everyone has the right to a defense. And there are certain cases that give you pause. Even when I was a public defender, and cases like this, you pray that maybe they didn't understand what they were doing, that there isn't that sort of horrific evil that lives in someone. But it's a very emotional and tough case. And I feel bad for defense attorneys who also have to try their best to defend them with the eyes of the world watching them. It's hard.
It is hard. It's the unthinkable that this was done to a young, beautiful child. Every child's beautiful, but young. They can't protect themselves. They're vulnerable. Interesting to me as a side note that the mother has a $400,000 bond. You said it's cash bond in that particular state. And boyfriend, who probably was the one actually doing it, has a $500,000 bond. In my mind, mom failed to protect. It's even worse than the boyfriend who actually did it. That's the way I think. But talk to us about why you think, Silva, that these aren't murder charges. They're death associated to the abuse of a child, but why not murder?
Maybe because the intent is missing. I mean, quite honestly, it sounds horrible, but I had this in a case where they tried to torture, I don't want to say the gay, right? But they try to torture this feminine aspect to make this kid tougher. So there isn't an intent to kill. There is merely trying to shape whatever they think needs to be fixed in that child and make it right. There could be a variety of reasons. I'm afraid we just don't know enough right now as to why they made the decision that they did. But we'll soon find out. And Judge Ashley, going back to what you said about the text messaging, I think that is also a very disturbing aspect to the case. That if you notice now, it's like we're seeing it in every single case, right? These defendants, they're really signing their own letters of conviction in a way by these text messages. And everybody can see it by a simple subpoena. Deleting your phone doesn't help. Once you put something on your phone, everyone can see it. Just another lesson that everything you do has a trail. And I think at the end of the day, that's going to be also a huge piece of evidence against the mother.
Yeah, no question about it. And they have a suitcase, they have them on video, just of Jesse Bang dropping off a suitcase somewhere. They found the suitcase, found the child's DNA inside. Yeah. So they've got some good evidence.
Yeah, they do have good evidence. I agree with you. All right. Thank you, Silva Megardician, for joining us tonight.
So Katrina Bauer pleads not guilty, in little Elijah's death. And her next court date is in February. Jesse Bang is due back on was due back in court on November 6th. Next up, a suspect in a murder plot searched Donna Adelson's case before her arrest. Officers with the American Fork Police Department have now arrested 2 more people in connection to the murder of 42-year-old Matthew Rastelli in July of this year. Detectives have arrested 36-year-old Catherine Rastelli and 59-year-old Tracy Christ for a conspiracy to commit murder. 33-year-old Kevin Ellis was already in custody for murder, possession of a dangerous weapon by a restricted person, and possession of a controlled substance. According to police, on Friday, July 12th at 10:10 p.m., they were called to a home in American Fork for a report of a man who had been shot. When they arrived, they found Matthew Rastelli dead from multiple gunshot wounds. 3 other adults and 2 children were in the home at the time. Matt Rastelli's wife, Catherine, her brother, Kevin Ellis, and Catherine's mother, Tracy Christ. The 2 children were Matthew and Catherine, and they were unharmed. They have now been placed in the custody of the Division of Child and Family Services. American Fork Police Department says what followed their arrival was an intensive, time-consuming, and meticulous investigation that led detectives to believe that Catherine Rastelli and Tracy Christ worked in concert with Kevin Ellis to lure Matthew Rastelli from California so that Ellis could kill Matthew. Following their investigation at the scene, police questioned Kevin Ellis in the presence of his attorney. They told detectives that sometime they had shot Matthew, but believed it to be self-defense, claiming that Matthew had a knife. They declined to answer, however, about how the knife was produced or if Matthew had threatened anyone with the knife. The attorney also told police investigators that Kevin had stated that Matthew had shown up to the home uninvited and unannounced at the time of the shooting. Court documents in the case state that Matthew and Catherine lived in California, but were having marriage problems. So Catherine came to Utah to stay with her mother, Tracy. Catherine would tell detectives that Matthew had decided to drive to Utah to speak with her and called her multiple times along the way. Catherine, Kevin, and Tracy's phones were seized during the murder investigation, and a search warrant was obtained to search the three phones. That search showed that Catherine had gotten a text message from her sister on June 20th reading, "I'll be watching the air tag and let you know as soon as it updates." Also found on Catherine's phone was a screenshot of Apple Maps with a blue dot sent from her sister showing a location in Aguanga, California. This is near Matthew Roselli's residence in the state, and led investigators to believe they were tracking his whereabouts. When police, this is such a messy case. It's so messy. It brought on Tracy's internet history and found these searches. June 7th. How old were Dan Markle's kids when Dan was killed? Katie Magbunawa, second trial defense charts. June 16th, Utah gun registration. Utah shot break-in. How does private sale of firearms work in Utah? How to establish Utah residency. To file for divorce if wife is a Utah resident and husband is a California resident. June 17th. How to get my U.S. passport fast. Apply for a child's U.S. passport. June 22nd. What if mom takes kids for overstate line visit and dad doesn't agree? What are the legal implications of taking your kids on vacation without the other parent's permission? If my child's father and I do not have a custody agreement in place, can he take my child and not return them back to? What to do? Parental kidnapping and no custody order. June 27th. Cemetery, American Fork. June 28th. Cemetery near Alpine. June 30th. 2 different searches for Donna Adelson. One being added movies and TV shows. New Dateline episode, January 19th. Donna Adelson, arrested at the airport. Ashley Judd's family feud. Winona tracking her car. July 11th. When was Donna Adelson arrested? July 12th at 14:13 hours Mountain Standard Time. It's happening meme. As of right now, Catherine Roselli and Tracy Quist are facing charges of murder, obstruction, and 2 counts of domestic violence in the presence of a child. Like I said, this case is messy, and they're using the possible framework of Donna Adelson. Not a good look. Next up, more body cam video. This time it shows the false arrest in a case of mistaken identity. A dramatic video highlights a significant error by the U.S. Marshals when they falsely arrested Penny McCarthy at gunpoint earlier this year. Alright, here we go. Get that set. And in just a couple moments, you're going to get to see this body cam footage.
Turning now to Arizona, where dramatic body camera video shows the moment when U.S. Marshals falsely arrested a 66-year-old grandmother at gunpoint because they thought that she was someone else. Reporter Jennifer Kolveski with the Scripps News Phoenix has a look at the intense 2-minute video and how this case of mistaken identity happened.
It took the federal government more than 6 months to publicly release this dramatic video. Revealing visuals highlighting a significant error by U.S. Marshals. And it also proves what 66-year-old Penny McCarthy knew all along.
Ever since this happened, sorry. I am so freaking disappointed in my government. It's not funny.
Turn away from the sound of my voice. This exclusive new police body camera footage captures the moment 6 U.S. Marshals armed with rifles wrongfully arrested Penny outside her Phoenix home.
You have an arrest warrant. Turn away from the sound of my voice. Yes, for you.
Who am I?
Turn away. Turn around. Let's discuss.
Turn away. You're going to get hit. The video clearly shows Penny had no idea why federal agents were there or how they could have a warrant for her arrest.
I truly, truly believed I was being kidnapped.
Do you want to confirm who I am? ABC 15 fought for 6 months to obtain these videos through a federal public records request. The first time we're seeing exactly what led to Penny's arrest.
Turn around and face away from me.
And it all happened in less than 2 minutes.
Can you prove you're the police? Ma'am, you signed up for the police. How do I see that? Ma'am, if you turn around and
What was it like watching this video?
It just makes me more angry than before.
Penny's story started with an email. No one believed her until ABC 15 listened to what happened, and we uncovered serious failures by the federal government.
I'd like to know why this person was arrested as Ms. Rozak.
Just days after our investigation aired, and in direct response to our reporting, prosecutors dropped the case against Penny, and the federal government admitted it was wrong. Penny never should have been arrested.
I'm not Carol Ann Rozak. I've never been Carol Ann Rozak.
She was not this woman, Carol Ann Rozak, not the Oklahoma fugitive federal agents thought she was, not the person seen in this mugshot from 20 years ago who was wanted on a parole violation for nonviolent crimes. What do you see on these videos?
I see abuse of power, period.
This brings us back to the body camera footage and Penny's crucial question.
Do you want to confirm who I am? Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back. We'll discuss this later.
Never discussed it later.
Stop moving and stop looking back. Stop looking back!
Can you prove you're the police?
Ma'am, you see that we're the police.
How do I see that?
Ma'am,
I don't know you're anybody.
Turn around again, you're going to get taped.
This is not my world. This does not happen to me.
If you turn around again, you're going to get taped. Understand me?
They did nothing but treat me like crap and lie to me.
Despite Penny insisting she could prove who she was, it's not until Penny's in handcuffs U.S. Marshals finally tell her who they think they're arresting.
Carol Rozak. That's not who I am.
Penny McCarthy.
Yes. Yes. But I've never been Carol Rozak. I can prove who I am.
Okay. How would you describe this case?
A textbook example of federal agencies not doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Josh Colstrom is a criminal defense attorney with years of experience as a federal prosecutor for the U.S. Attorney's Office.
This case is concerning because of the manner in which Miss McCarthy was arrested.
We asked him to review the videos and evidence in Penny's case. Your reaction?
It is stunning to watch, and it's scary that this can happen in America.
Colstrom believes the videos show Phoenix U.S. Marshals used excessive force.
This was an aggressive arrest. And it's unreasonable on so many levels.
He also calls into question how federal agents made this arrest before fully verifying Penny's identity.
In this case, they didn't do that. We have to hold these agencies and the agents accountable.
The only public accountability we do have regarding the clear disconnect between Penny and Carol comes from this court audio recording a day after she's detained, when the judge also questions why Penny was arrested.
But it is strictly based upon information that they had, Facebook postings, that led and some aliases.
Evidence that wasn't sufficient to go forward with a hearing. A full fingerprint analysis would confirm Penny's prints didn't match, proving U.S. Marshals arrested the wrong person.
Yeah. The U.S. Marshals are above the law, is what it says to me. And the United States government allows that to happen.
You do want to confirm who I am?
It's a hell of a system.
We are committed to getting answers for Penny. We asked U.S. Marshals multiple times for their perspective on the video you just watched, but the agency did not respond by our deadline. In a previous statement, the U.S. Marshals said it was conducting a thorough review of the actions taken by Deputy U.S. Marshals, but the federal government has yet to provide an update on that review. We will keep asking questions. I'm investigator Jennifer Kowaleski, ABC 15, Arizona.
All right, let's bring in our guests to discuss. With us, trial attorneys Sue Ann Robinson and Gabrielle Higgins. Ladies, great to see you. Thank you so much for joining me tonight on the program. Sue Ann, I'll begin with you. I know you do a lot of civil rights work. I want to get your thoughts looking at this. Is it, in your opinion, an abuse of power, what we're seeing going on here?
I just think that a very basic tenet of a marshal's job that's effectuating a warrant is to verify identity. Like, that's the minimum baseline requirement. Verify the person's identity. So I think there's absolutely a failure of their duty there. They did not verify her identity.
Gabrielle, I want to get your thoughts. One thing I can say is that this Carol Rozak person, again, she was arrested back in 1999. She served time. They were nonviolent offenses. She never reported to her probation officer. At this point, when they arrest her, or they arrest this woman, their understanding is that Carol Rozak had used a number of aliases. So there's that issue, but I want to get your thoughts on what you saw.
I think regardless, the question is, was this reasonable? Was it reasonable to approach this woman guns drawn without verifying her identity? And the answer is unequivocally no. That was not a reasonable approach. And behavior like this, especially when we're able to see what happened, it shakes not only the faith of this elderly woman, but the faith of the country in the system, right? This could happen to anyone. It's very dangerous.
Quickly, I want to push back a little bit and play devil's advocate here, because as a marshal on the street, again, your job is to effectuate an arrest, right? And verify identity. But at the end of the day, how do you know in the street, Sue Ann, that the identity she's showing you could be a fake ID? How are you going to litigate that in the street? Also, if you're going to effectuate an arrest, take away someone's liberty, how do you know what their reaction's going to be? I don't care if it's a 66-year-old grandmother or a 25-year-old young kid or a teenager. Your approach has to be safety first. So I think there were problems along the line that led to them arresting her, but their actions in the street, I'm not sure I have that much of a problem with it.
Michael, I agree with you. They do have a duty to make sure that they're safe. I think the issue is when you look at the video and you do see a 66-year-old woman, you see that there's no threat. She's not armed. She's not making threatening gestures. There is not a concern for their safety. Therefore, there isn't a reason to approach her aggressively with guns drawn and use such aggressive force to take her down. It's one thing if she was inside of the house, barricaded inside of the house, and they have a concern because they can't see her hands. There's a safety concern because they don't know if she's armed. They can see that the woman is not a threat. And quite frankly, and I say this all the time on my own cases dealing with excessive force. If an officer is feeling threatened by an unarmed 66-year-old woman, then they should perhaps not be in law enforcement. Oh. And that's really what the issue is.
Couldn't have said that last statement better myself. In the meantime, as far as Penny McCarthy is concerned, they're still waiting for a statement from U.S. Marshal's office. I think they just made one big mistake, but just won't own up to it. Moving onward, we have another sentencing date, resentencing hearing that is, for Eric and Lyle Menendez. Alright, let's go to Court TV for a brief update on when the brothers will get that resentencing.
All right, we turn now to a major update in the Menendez brothers murder saga. A judge has set a resentencing hearing date. Eric and Lyle will learn if they have a shot at freedom on December 11th after spending 28 years in prison for the 1989 killings of their parents, Jose and Kitty Menendez. Now, that date was decided Wednesday after prosecutors submitted a recommendation for the brothers' resentencing last week. Los Angeles County District Attorney George Gascon said his office would recommend the brothers be given a sentence of 50 years to life, which would make them immediately eligible for parole since they were under the age of 26 when they committed the crime. DA Gascon also said he supports the brothers' request for clemency. Gascon posted on Instagram, "I strongly support clemency for Eric and Lyle Menendez." He went on to say the pair have continued their educations and worked to create new programs and support the rehabilitation of fellow inmates. The Menendezes filed their clemency request on Monday. The brothers are currently serving life sentences without parole after being convicted of the murders in a 1996 retrial. The brothers' attorneys never disputed that the pair killed their parents, but they argued that they acted out of self-defense after years of emotional and sexual abuse by their father. Much of the evidence related to abuse was excluded from their second trial. The brothers will also have a hearing on November 25th regarding a habeas petition filed last year that asked the court to look at new evidence not previously introduced at their second trial. If the judge approves the resentencing, the brothers will still need a state parole board to grant them their release. California Governor Gavin Newsom then has 150 days to review its decision.
Let me try this again. When we get new updates as to what happens with the Menendez brothers, you can be sure you'll get it right here at Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. And Court TV, your front row seat to justice. Next up, an Ohio man asked to withdraw his guilty plea in a pizza delivery murder. Chad Cobb originally pled guilty to murdering Ashley Biggs. Now he wants to withdraw the plea. Cobb and Erica Stefanko is accused of luring Biggs to her death. Alright. An Ohio man pled guilty over a decade ago to murdering his ex-girlfriend who wants to withdraw that plea. Chad Cobb appeared in Akron court earlier this month for a hearing regarding his motion to withdraw. In exchange for a sentence of life without parole, Cobb pled guilty back in 2013 to aggravated murder in the 2012 death of Ashley Biggs. Cobb also pled guilty to kidnapping, domestic violence, aggravated robbery, felonious assault, retaliation, tampering with evidence, abuse of a corpse, and possession of criminal tools. The state contends that now 42-year-old Cobb waived his right to a trial, agreeing to spend life in prison so he'd be spared a possible death sentence. At a hearing, however, Cobb testified that he was misled by his attorney. He said he only pled guilty in order to save his kids. According to Cobb, his lawyer told him that if he didn't plead guilty, his children would be put up for adoption and get lost in the system. He said he feared the kids' names would be changed and that they'd be cut off from him forever. Cobb said he was led to believe that a guilty plea would allow him to maintain contact with the kids. Cobb emphasized that he wasn't motivated so much by his desire to remain in the kids' lives as he was for his own parents and grandparents to stay in their lives. Cobb and Biggs shared a daughter together. At the time of Biggs' death, the little girl was 6 years old, and the former couple was embroiled in a bitter custody dispute over her. She's 19 years of age today. Biggs, an Army veteran, was delivering pizzas for Domino's on the night she died. On June 20 of 2012, Cobb's wife, Erica Stefanko, lured Biggs to an empty parking lot by placing a bogus Domino's order. 25-year-old Biggs was ambushed upon her arrival. Cobb tased and beat her, strangled her to death with a zip tie, and then stuffed her body into the back of a car that he abandoned in a cornfield. In a retrial covered by Court TV earlier this year, Stefanko, now 41, was found guilty of Biggs' murder and sentenced to life in prison. She must serve a minimum of 30 years before she's considered for parole. Cobb took the witness stand at both of Stefanko's trials, telling jurors that he confronted and beat Biggs, but Stefanko was the one to carry out the strangling. Cobb further testified that it wasn't until after he pled guilty that he learned he could have pled not guilty and maintained his parental right. The state, however, noted that Cobb made the plea willingly so that Stefanko could raise the children. Stefanko divorced Cobb in 2013 after he entered his guilty plea. Stefanko went on to marry and have a child with Cobb's best friend prior to her arrest. The judge did not make a ruling about whether Cobb can change his plea. The decision is expected to be announced in the coming weeks. And when we get that ruling, you'll get it here first. Young Thug. This past week, he pled guilty to gang, drug, and gun charges. Let's take you to Court TV right now.
We have an update for you in the Young Thug RICO trial going on in Georgia. The rap star, whose real name is Jeffrey Williams, has agreed to change his plea to guilty. Now, this is all going on right now inside of an Atlanta courtroom. Williams pleaded guilty to gang, drug, and gun charges. This trial is the longest-running criminal trial in Georgia history. And with the deal, the trial actually comes to a close. 3 of Young Thug's co-defendants took plea deals this week as well. The rapper was indicted in 2022 on charges related to allegedly leading the street gang called Young Slime Life, or YSL. The gang is accused of committing illegal and violent acts, including murder, carjacking, armed robbery, and drug dealing. It is a non-negotiated plea, which basically means the judge will ultimately decide the punishment. All right, so that comes to an end.
So with that plea, that whole case comes to an end. Only thing left now is the sentencing for Young Thug. Next up, authorities say Darren Christopher Abbey is a suspect in the death of Dustin Cursum, who was found brutally killed in his tent on October 12th. Oh wow! Guess that page. Let me see. Maybe I'll have to look his name up. Yep. There we go. This was the story I was looking for. Let's go right now to the update.
Before we go to break, we do have an update on the Montana campsite murder that we first told you about yesterday around this time. 41-year-old Darren Abbey is charged with deliberate homicide in the killing of Dustin Cursum. Now, Dustin Cursum was found dead in a tent at a makeshift campsite north of Big Sky on October 12th. Now, the injuries there were so severe and brutal that initially his girlfriend thought that Cursum was attacked by a bear. Well, investigative reporter Megan Lane with Scripps News Bozeman has details on the arrest of the suspect and what the suspect allegedly told police moments before taking this man's life.
This appears to be a heinous crime committed by an individual who had no regard for the life of Dustin Cursum.
On October 12th, 35-year-old Dustin Cursum was found viciously killed in his tent while camping near Big Sky, a murder that rattled the entire nation. Now, 3 weeks later, a press conference was held at the Gallatin County Detention Center, where Sheriff Dan Springer identified the murderer.
The Sheriff's Office is here to announce the arrest of Darren Christopher Abbey for the murder of Dustin Cursum.
41-year-old Darren Christopher Abbey currently lives in the Basin, Montana area and works in Big Sky for a construction business. Abbey was initially arrested in Butte for violating parole. He was later interviewed by detectives and confessed to the murder. Springer continued to explain how Abbey murdered Cursum. During the confession, Abbey stated he was looking for a place to camp.
As he approached the site, he realized someone was staying there. He stayed. Dustin welcomed him to the campsite and offered him a beer. At some point, this individual struck Dustin Cursum with a piece of solid wood, stabbed him in the neck with a screwdriver, and ultimately hit him with the axe.
According to the sheriff, Abbey proceeded to remove all items from the campsite he thought contained evidence that would tie him to the crime. But he left one item behind.
The detectives collected DNA from a beer can inside of Cursum's tent and sent it to the Montana State Crime Lab.
On October 25th, Abbey's DNA was a confirmed match. Sheriff Springer says there's currently no known connection between Abbey and Cursum, and the motive behind the murder is still unknown. Abbey was being held in the Butte Detention Center, where he was initially arrested, but is being moved to Gallatin County Detention Center Thursday. Sheriff Springer and other detectives on the case thanked the public for their assistance in helping Cursum and his family find justice. Sheriff Springer also had one more message to the public.
The Gallatin County Sheriff's Office and its partners will not stand for this type of behavior. If you have some need to commit these types of crimes, let it be known we will hunt you down. And we will make sure that you never see the light of day again. We will protect the good people of this community with every resource we have.
That says a lot right there. That says a lot. Abbey is still being held on a $1.5 million bail, according to the Sheriff's Department records. Up next, a judge denies Amber Spradlin murder suspect's motion for a lowered bond. A request for a lowered bond by one of the suspects in the death of Amber Spradlin in Floyd County was denied. Michael M.K. McKinney The third's bond is set at $5 million, and Judge Eddie Coleman ordered to keep that bond amount. McKinney is charged with murder and multiple counts of complicity to evidence tampering. Attorneys for McKinney argued at a hearing and in their written motion that evidence in the case could tie another man in the house to Spradlin's stabbing death, and pointed to McKinney's lack of criminal history as reason that the bond should legally be lowered. In Coleman's order, he wrote that it appears that McKinney's father has adequate means to post a significant bond to secure his son's bail. Looking at the allegations as argued by the parties and supported by exhibits to their briefs, it is a finding of this court that the current bail set by the court is reasonable, Coleman went on to write in explaining the denial of the motion. McKinney's father, Michael McKinney II, is charged with multiple counts of complicity to tampering with evidence, along with a family friend, Josh Mullins. So there you go. $5 million bond, you want it lowered? Judge says, Next up, states in the subway choking trial. The state says the vet subway chokehold went too far. The defense calls it courageous. You be the judge. Let's go to Court TV for further analysis on this case.
All right, turning now to New York. Big case going on there. Opening statements took place in the subway chokehold manslaughter trial of Daniel Penny. Now, I do want to warn you, we're going to show you some video, and the may be difficult to watch. Daniel Penny, a U.S. Marine Corps veteran, placed a homeless man, Jordan Neely, in a chokehold, resulting in his death back in May of 2023. Now, prosecutors call it a reckless killing, but Penny claims that it was just self-defense of himself and others. Now, Neely was reportedly behaving erratically, shouting and begging for money on the train, but was unarmed and didn't assault anyone before Penny placed him in a deadly chokehold. Now, Penny has pleaded not guilty to the charges of second-degree manslaughter and criminally negligent homicide. The case has renewed arguments surrounding race, homelessness, mental health, perceptions of public safety, and of course, bystanders' responsibility. Penny said he was defending other passengers when he held Neely down in a chokehold for several minutes.
Some people say I was trying to choke him to death, which is also not true. I was trying to restrain him. And then some people say that this was about race, which is absolutely ridiculous. I didn't see a black man threatening passengers. I saw a man threatening passengers. A lot of whom were people of color. The man who helped restrain Mr. Neely was a person of color. And then a few days after the incident, I read in the papers that a woman of color came out and called me a hero. I don't believe that I'm a hero, but she was one of those people that I was trying to protect.
Now, Penny is free on $100,000 bond, and donors have reportedly raised $3 million for his defense fund. He faces 15 years in prison if convicted of second-degree manslaughter and up to 4 years if convicted of criminally negligent homicide. Cameras are not allowed in this courtroom, but we will update you as soon as we get more details on this trial. All right, let's bring back in our guest still with us. We have defense attorney and former prosecutor Marie Pereira. Marie, all right, he said he's not a hero. Some people call him a hero. I do want to point out there was a large protest outside the courthouse there. Folks calling him, and he's been called this for a while out there, subway strangler. Most of the people out there, people of color, calling this maybe a racial incident. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. We'll discuss that. But let me first begin. He says he's not a hero. Some people say he's a killer. What's your take on this situation?
I think I'm going to reserve my full opinion until I see more videotapes, because I remember when this first came out, I saw tapes that really showed that the victim was very aggressive and was very threatening to the passengers in that subway car. Being a New Yorker myself, I can tell you, I don't ride the subway often, but it is a very dangerous place, and I feel unsafe every time I get on the subway. So for us to say automatically that this is a black and white thing, he killed him because he was a black man, I think we need to wait, because maybe he was trying to protect the other people in the subway cart. Maybe he had no intent or recklessness, disregard for human life, and he was just impulsively acting to protect people from a person who's mentally ill, yes, but could hurt people, yes, also. Where do you draw the line? I think we need to wait and see all the facts before we jump to any conclusions. And for me, I haven't seen enough to say this was racial, this was unjustified, or anything like that so far.
All right, so I'm going to run you through some of the facts, Marie. And I'm going to tell you, first of all, the law, as the way the state said it, the state set it out for the jury, was that a chokehold is permissible only when necessary and for as long as absolutely necessary. They went on to point on the fact that in this particular case, the train came to a stop. He had already had Neely in a chokehold. Everybody left the car except Neely, because he was in the chokehold. He remained in the chokehold. Two other people were holding him down. And there's going to be testimony from eyewitnesses, folks who were helping hold down, that at some point, Neely just stopped resisting. You know, when you have someone in a chokehold, you no longer can resist because you lose consciousness. People are going to say it appeared he lost consciousness. Now, if you can't hold it beyond what's needed, there's no one left to protect. He is no longer fighting back and may even be, or there will be testimony he was unconscious. What do you say to that?
I think you still have to look at the totality of the circumstances. And I think that his defense team could still argue the adrenaline was going. He's not a chokeologist unless they can prove that he should have known better from the prosecutorial side. One could say he still saw that there was a threat and that he had no intent and there was no depravity there. He's just a man who was minding his business on a train, saw danger to other passengers, did what he could, and he didn't intentionally keep kneeling when the man was dead or near death. I think you have to look at the totality of the circumstances, and there's still an opportunity for his defense team to show that there was no intent, no malice, racism, or anything like that. And I think in New York, in this climate that we're in right now, he has a good chance of being acquitted on these charges.
It's interesting because you're a New Yorker, I'm a New Yorker as well.
Yes, I am.
And the jury obviously made up of New Yorkers. And the testimony is that Neely was screaming at the top of his lungs, yelling at people. People appeared afraid, but he was unarmed. And he hadn't actually assaulted anyone, hadn't touched anyone at that point. As a New Yorker, I'm not going to say this happens every day, but it happens fairly regularly on the subway. People look the other way. People just hope nothing happens. My question is, a bunch of New Yorkers on a jury, are they going to say that this is the type of action we want on our subways in this particular situation, where there were lots of shouting, things like that going on all the time in the subway, obviously a health issue, no one actually physically harmed to that point? Do you think they're going to want that type of response on our subways?
First off, Michael, I heard it wasn't just screaming. It wasn't just screaming, I love grapes. He was screaming threats and saying, I could hurt people. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. He was making threats against the safety, the physical safety of other people. So there's a difference. When we see it, we'll see it. I haven't seen it. The trial is just starting, so we don't know, but that's what I heard. And as far as New Yorkers giving a carte blanche for anybody to just jump in and be superhero chokeologists, even when it's not necessary, I don't think New Yorkers are like that. But I will tell you this, the last time I rode the subway, someone was asking for money and I said no, and he basically almost tried to grab my Neverfull from me. So I'll tell you, if those are the types of people who are on the jury, and they did voir dire already and the case started, but this is not going to help the prosecution, because New Yorkers, we're on guard and we're not giving a carte blanche to racism and, unlawful killings, but we do respect somebody who might be trying to protect us. Yeah,
I would have to agree. I don't see this at all, Marie, as being a race issue. I think and he said it, if the person been white, black, whatever, he would have jumped in if that was his sense of what he wanted to do and help people. But do you think it might hurt him, the idea that he is a Marine, he is trained in martial arts, he knows the danger of chokeholds? Will this jury or will this state try to hold him to a little bit of a higher standard?
Absolutely, and that's why I said you have to look at the totality of the circumstances, and I made up the word chocologist, but you have to know, should he have known that a certain amount of knee on the neck for a certain amount of time could result in death? That's going to hurt him, but at the end of the day, I think the totality of the circumstances, the location of where it happened is going to work in his favor.
Yeah, the states are going to have a little bit of issue with cause of death, too. The defense is attacking that as well. Not exactly sure exactly how he died. Could have been a heart issue, could have been something else, similar to what we saw in the George Floyd case.
Next up on the docket, a Karen Reed update. This is a little win for Karen Reed. The judge grants Karen Reed's request to delay any depositions or discovery until after the conclusion of her second criminal trial.
We have breaking news, this coming out of the state of Massachusetts, the Commonwealth. Plymouth Superior Court judge has just made a major ruling in a civil case against Karen Reed. The judge, William White Jr., has ruled that Reed will not be deposed in the wrongful death lawsuit against her until after her second criminal trial wraps up. That is scheduled to take place at the end of January. You recall that this is a civil lawsuit brought on by the family of the Boston police officer, her boyfriend, John O'Keefe, who she's accused of killing that snowy night. And this wrongful death lawsuit also includes the bars and the bar owners in which they visited before his death that night. Again, the judge ruling that she will not be deposed before her second criminal trial. Remember that first trial that spanned about 3 months long there in the state of Massachusetts, in a small town of Canton that really divided that community, ended in a mistrial. Let's bring in our guest to discuss this. We have Michael Jaffer, national criminal attorney. No surprise, Michael, that the judge made a ruling that the civil trial can't take place until after the criminal is wrapped up.
I agree with the judge's decision. Look, I hate Karen Reed. I detest this woman. I want to see her convicted in her next criminal case, but I want to see it done the right way, right? Had the judge not done this, obviously it would have divided the community further, because she's created this whole entire conspiracy hoax. She's made the whole thing up. And so because of that, there's division in that community that she sowed herself intentionally to deflect attention from herself. With that being said, the judge could have forced her to go forward with the deposition, and she would have just invoked her Fifth Amendment privileges, and that would have created a negative inference in the civil case. It could not create a negative inference in the criminal case that's going to come, but it would have created a negative inference in the civil case. But then it would have just played into her whole entire narrative of, look, the whole system is against me, and I'm a heroine who's fighting to protect the system. I think the judge made the right decision. I'm proud of the decision. I think the decision was right. I don't think she should have been forced to move forward with the deposition in her civil case. It could wait. Her criminal case is right around the corner. This could wait. Civil cases last years, by the way. They're not like criminal. They last years. And so this is not, it would have been way too fast to force her to be deposed before the criminal case. And obviously the attorneys for the family wanted it done this way. They also made the right move. It was a chess move to force her to toe the line and file this motion. And so everything happened the way it should happen. The system worked for now, and I'm proud of the decision that the judge did.
Yeah, and the threshold, to remind our viewers, is much less in a civil case than it is a criminal case. But again, that deposition could have been used against her in court because she would have been under oath. It's almost making her testify before the next jury gets the case. But you know what could be used in court, what wasn't used in the first trial but is still on the table, is all of the interviews that she's been doing on national news.
Yeah, by the way, I hate this woman, and I hope she puts her foot in her mouth. I hope that she has enough, basically, a metaphorical rope to basically hang herself with her interviews. She's a narcissist. Again, these are my opinions, obviously, not that of anybody else. My opinion is she's a narcissist, and she's worried about one person and one person only, Karen Reed. I'm not saying she's that thing because of the fact that she defended herself and she pled not guilty and she vigorously defended herself. Everybody has a right to do that. That's not at all the problem. The problem is when you defend yourself, but then you lie and you blame an entire community and a police department that has been riddled with its own controversy to do that in order to deflect attention from yourself so that you don't get pulled over that night for a drunk driving and go to jail for a felony for driving. And even if you accidentally hit John O'Keefe, but you were so drunk that it becomes a felony that has mandatory prison sentences. When you do that, when you go back to his house, when you put up a story that you are being framed and all of it has been debunked, when you do that, I believe that you're a narcissist, and that's why the interviews don't shock me. I'm sure she's going to have a book deal. She's going to have a book deal if she gets acquitted in the second case. She's going to spend the rest of her life smugly claiming that she stood up to the system and won. Right? So I really hope she gets convicted in this next criminal case. I'm proud of the civil suit. I think the civil suit is going to, even if she gets acquitted in the second case, that civil case, she's going to get found responsible for his murder in the civil case. Again, a prediction by me, and she's going to spend the rest of her life paying tens of millions of dollars or getting her bank account seized or real estate seized. I think this woman's got some problems for the rest of her life that she created with her own narcissism.
All right, well, that's your opinion and your legal analysis, but that's why this case has divided so many, right? Because there was troubling things done in that investigation, and quite frankly, her theories haven't been debunked because she wasn't acquitted, but she also wasn't found guilty. She's going to face a second trial, and the first trial ended in a mistrial because they couldn't decide what really happened, right? But the news here today out of Massachusetts is with the civil case. She will not be deposed before the second criminal trial in January.
So score that as a win for Karen Reed for now. We'll have to wait and see what comes next when her trial restarts in January. Upcoming trial that's going to be broadcast on Court TV. It's the Burn Alive murder trial. South Carolina versus Craig Lewis. South Carolina man is currently standing trial on the charges he killed his wife by setting her on fire, causing injuries that took her life 10 months later. 47-year-old Craig Anthony Lewis is charged with murder, arson, and domestic violence in the death of his wife, Terry Lewis. People say Craig assaulted his wife over 2 days, beginning January 16, 2019. Excuse me, my phone went off. Police say Craig assaulted his wife over 2 days, beginning on January 16, 2019. In documents reviewed by Court TV, police say Craig hit her with personal weapons and the butt of a firearm shotgun, breaking the weapon over her hip. Terry was bleeding and had trouble walking after the incident, police said. The next day, January 17th, police say Craig lit his wife on fire inside their home in an attempt to kill her. The front of Terry's body suffered severe burns and she succumbed to her injuries 10 months later. Terry's daughter, Leanne Cronkley, told Fitz News that her mother began fighting with Craig on January 17th because Terry told him that she was leaving. The argument allegedly turned physical, and Terry said that Craig violently raped her before throwing a rag or shirt lit on fire at her. Terry said that when she tried to throw the rag away, Craig would throw it back until she caught fire, finally stepping on her head and crushing it. Despite a criminal history of prior convictions, Craig was granted a $100,000 surety bond with ankle monitoring at a bond hearing and has been free since February 26, 2019. And as it stands right now, the jury selection has already begun. We'll see how that plays out, and of course, I'll be covering that case. And when the verdict is reached, you'll get the word right here. Next, handwritten notes offer a play-by-play of boyfriend's murder. Samantha Krebs is accused of stabbing her boyfriend to death and kissing him goodbye before leaving the apartment. This case is ongoing right now.
Turning now to Wisconsin, where a preliminary hearing for defendant Samantha Krebs was held yesterday.
The 39-year-old is accused of first-degree intentional homicide after she allegedly stabbed her boyfriend in the chest and then tried to convince friends to tell the police that he had actually stabbed himself.
All right, I want to get you good folks into court for this preliminary hearing. On the stand is the officer who responded to the stabbing in July. His name is Sergeant Chad Riddle. Let's get into court.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Go ahead, Attorney Federalist, when you're ready.
Thank you. Sergeant Riddle, what's your occupation?
Police officer of the applicant.
Were you working in that capacity back on July 18th of 2024?
Yes.
As an investigator, do you get called out in major crimes?
Yes.
Were you called out to an incident that had occurred at 2800 Park Drive Lane at apartment 5 in Appleton, Allegheny County, Wisconsin?
Yes.
What was the reason for you getting called out to that incident?
The call that myself and other investigators were called out for was a stabbing that had occurred at the apartments in which the male who had been stabbed was deceased.
Did you have the opportunity, or other officers have the opportunity to enter into the apartment?
Yes.
And were there any observations in the apartment with the deceased?
Yes, the responding officers located an adult male on the floor within the kitchen of the apartment who had an apparent stab wound to what was described as the left rib area.
Was there also what looked like a red substance in the vicinity of where he was as well?
Yes, there was a red substance on the floor around him as well as on him.
Did that red substance appear consistent with what might be blood?
Yes.
Was aid provided to this individual?
Yes.
And was he ultimately transported to a hospital?
No, he was not. He was pronounced deceased inside the apartment.
This person is referenced in the criminal complaint as JJC?
Yes.
In addition, was there any items located in the apartment that could potentially have been consistent with the wound that he had?
Yes, there was a knife that was located in the sink that was in the kitchen of the apartment.
Who this incident did?
A gentleman by the name of John Pfeffer.
That's P-F-E-F-F-E-R?
Yes.
Was there also another person at that location when law enforcement arrived?
Yes, a female by the name of Christy Cleveland.
Is that C-L-E-L-A-N-D?
Yes.
You indicated that JJC had died at the scene. Was an autopsy conducted?
Yes.
Where was that located?
The autopsy was conducted at the Milwaukee County Medical Examiner's Office by Dr. Kelly.
Did Dr. Kelly have a preliminary cause of death at that time?
He did.
And what was that?
The preliminary autopsy results were that the JJC died of a stab wound.
And was that stab, where was that stab wound located?
To the chest.
And was that consistent with what officers observed when they responded on July 18th?
Yes.
I'd like to come back to officers being dispatched on July 18th, 2024. Upon arriving at the scene and doing some investigation, did law enforcement make contact and talk with John Pfeffer and Christy Cleveland?
Yes.
Was it learned over the course of that time whether or not JGC had a girlfriend or significant other?
Yes. We were informed that JJC had a girlfriend by the name of Samantha Krebs.
And where was her whereabouts at that time?
At the time of the initial responding officers, it was unknown where Ms. Krebs was.
Did you ultimately learn who Ms. Krebs was?
Yes.
Is she present in court today?
Yes, she is.
Could you please identify an item of clothing she's wearing or where she's seated, please?
Yes, she's seated at the table to my left. She's wearing an orange jumpsuit.
Your Honor, I'd like the record to reflect identification.
Record will reflect for the purposes of this hearing only, obviously. Go ahead, counsel.
During the course of the investigation, did you have an opportunity to interview and speak with John Pfeffer and Christy Cleveland on the night of July 18th into the morning of July 19th?
Yes, I did.
What did you learn from those conversations with them?
Initially, myself and Sergeant Keither spoke with John Pfeffer. John told us that the course of the events were that he and Ms. Cleveland had gone over to the apartment where JJC and Ms. Krebs were. John had stated that when he and Christy went inside, they located JJC on the floor with the stab wound. Mr. Pfeffer stated at that point they provided aid to JJC, and then he ultimately contacted 911.
Did he indicate whether or not there was anyone else at the apartment when he arrived besides JJC?
Mr. Pfeffer initially told Sergeant Keither and I that no one else was inside the apartment except JJC.
During the course of speaking with him, did he ultimately provide you with different information?
Yes, he did. When Sergeant Keither and I spoke with Mr. Pfeffer, Sergeant Ewell, another investigator with our department, spoke with Ms. Cleveland. Sergeant Ewell had indicated that Ms. Cleveland basically gave the same information. After Sergeant Keither and I were done speaking initially with Mr. Pfeffer, he informed us that he wanted to talk to us again, but wanted to do so with Ms. Cleveland present.
Did you then talk to them both together?
Yes, we did.
And what did you learn at that time?
Mr. Pfeffer told us that he had a moral problem and made the comment to Ms. Cleveland asking, I think we should tell them everything that we know. At which point then Mr. Pfeffer told us, somewhat similar to his first statements to us, that he and Ms. Cleveland arrived at the apartment, and upon entering inside the apartment, he observed JJC on the ground. But in his second statement to us, he advised us that Ms. Krebs was present inside the apartment. Mr. Pfeffer stated that Ms. Krebs looked directly at him. I believe he stated that he looked into my eyes and said, just tell the police that JJC stabbed himself.
All right, so a little quick context here. This is a probable cause hearing, and they have the lead detective coming in, providing information to the court to determine if there's enough probable cause to bind this over for trial.
Hearing, you will get that information here, Bethea'S Byte Reloaded, and likely a court date. We have a report of the raid that was on Pastor John Paul Miller months after his wife's suicide. That's next on the docket, and you're going to get to see and hear that information first right here.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Michael Ayala, and out of South Carolina, where FBI agents were seen today searching the home of Myrtle Beach pastor John Paul Miller, linked to an ongoing criminal investigation that has really gained national attention. Here's a look outside the Miller home in Myrtle Beach. Court-authorized law enforcement activity wrapped up about an hour ago. There were about 24 FBI agents in evidence response team uniforms at the home. And we're also told that they brought bagged items out of the home. Never a good sign. A crowd and protesters lined up outside the home to watch this all go down. And one group of women have been following the case, and they're demanding answers.
Waiting 6 months for something to be done, and hopefully justice will come faster and he'll be put in handcuffs and put in jail.
Now, back in April, 30-year-old Micah Miller died by an apparent suicide. She was the wife of South Carolina pastor John Paul Miller, who she was separating from at the time of her death. The federal authorities joined the local investigation after a mysterious 911 call. Now, these are surveillance photos from Micah's last day alive, where she appears to purchase a firearm from a nearby pawn shop before police say she killed herself with the gun that she purchased at that pawn shop. Now, since her death, law enforcement have released the 911 call, security footage, and a timeline of events detailing the day she died. Here is a snippet of a chilling 911 call that Micah made with a suicidal message for her family.
I'm about to kill myself, and I just want my family to know where to find me.
Now, her husband, Pastor John Paul Miller, addressed his congregation publicly at Solid Rock Church after he allegedly found out about her death. Take a listen.
I got a call late last night. My wife has passed away. And yeah, it was self-induced, and it was up in North Carolina. And we're gonna have a funeral for her next Sunday here at 3 p.m. And so it's all I can. Yeah, I'm just kind of going on adrenaline right now. So y'all pray for me and my kids and everybody. And she wasn't. Y'all knew that she wasn't well mentally, and that she needed her medicine that was hard to get to her. And so I'm sure there'll be more details to come, but just keep our family in your prayers.
Pastor Miller has not been charged in this case, but some claim that he was abusive toward her, and many are left skeptical that he may have somehow had a hand in her death. He has denied any involvement at all. Let's bring back in criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Marie Peretta. Marie, what do you make of this? They're in the house, they're bringing stuff out. As I said, never a good sign. They're still investigating this case. There's a lot of evidence as I go through this that suggests this was in fact a suicide. But what do you think they're looking for here?
They're looking for something that could inculpate him, somehow tie him to the suicide. I think this is very, very sad. And I don't understand the why when they executed the warrant, they had to say, come out right now, we have a warrant. Why not just knock on the door and say, we have a warrant? All of this grandstanding makes him look bad. And I just don't think that this is the way for law enforcement to execute a warrant against a person. It's not like you're going to some drug dealer's house or something like that. It was a lot. But I think, again, in this case, we have a lot to learn, because at the end of the day, he's saying, I heard what happened to my wife. There was acrimony between them, and they were in different states. But you know what? Telephones, video surveillance, if he has an alibi, I think there's so much that needs to come out. We can't say much, but the fact that they were separated and that phone call is very damning, because she says, I'm about to kill myself.
Yeah.
So it really helps him in that sense. Let's see the rest.
Yeah, and apparently he was at an athletic event. He had picked up a girlfriend at that time. He was on video with her in the car. So as far as him having a hand in it physically, I think that's clear not. But you're right. Easily find a computer with messages, because you can drive someone to suicide, and that is absolutely a crime. And here's the other thing.
But
I know you. Go ahead.
He picked up a girlfriend.
Yeah,
they were still married, right?
Yeah, they were. They were about to separate.
Pastor.
They were
That's
going
not
through a
gonna work in
contentious
his favor.
divorce. They were going through a contentious divorce, so these things happen, and I agree with you, not a good look. But here's the deal. There's something else that's not a good look in this case, and it's something I know you know a little bit about, and that's domestic violence and abuse. There are allegations that there was abuse in this relationship, right? Now, we know the time of separation is a time that, you know, people are most, and women especially, are most at risk. Let's take a listen to the family attorney and what he has to say about the abuse in that family.
He claims that she was diagnosed with these mental illnesses and was on lithium. According to her, she didn't know she'd been diagnosed or what her medication was, because he always controlled the medication. He administered the medication. In fact, he has admitted that he would cut her pills up and give them to her if she refused to take the medication. Lithium, he has been diagnosed and admits it in a sermon. And if you look up lithium and the side effects of it, or if you take too much of it or you're over-medicated, you go into delirium. And that's what her demeanor reminded me of.
Right, so that gives us a little more insight into what might be going on here in this investigation. If he is telling her that she's got these problems, she's never been diagnosed, and he's giving her pills, perhaps to control her or for some other reason, then we're talking a very different case here.
We are, but these are allegations. Blood tests will show the lithium level in your body, because lithium is a prescribed medication and it has to be kept at certain levels so it works the way it's supposed to work as far as an antipsychotic type medication. So that we have to wait for. If he was giving her his lithium, it still would show up in her blood. The fact that he could be accused of putting lithium in her food or however he was giving it to her and she didn't know still tells me that there was something mentally unstable about her. And that doesn't mean that he murdered her. They need to show a lot more before we could jump to this conclusion.
Yeah, fair enough. I agree 100%.
And so there are a lot more questions than there are answers, and we will have to keep digging to find out these answers. Until then, we'll wait for the next update. But an important note here: if you need to talk to someone, if you're on that verge of taking your own life and you need to talk to someone, you are asked to call the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by dialing 988 or text HOME, HOME, to the crisis text line at 741-741. Someone is available to talk to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in more than 160 languages. Again, there is someone available to talk to you. All you have to do is reach out. Dial 988 or text HOME to the crisis text line at 741-741. Alright, I guess that's going to wrap things up. Only thing I have left is last rites. Yep, and I just got finished taking the names off of my own notepad. Okay. Let me prepare this. Okay, here we go. When the Reaper calls your name, there is no apology. When the Reaper calls your name, there is no remorse. When the Reaper calls your name, it's just over. Abston, Stevens, the hounds of hell are baying for your souls, and the gates of hell are opening and welcoming you to your eternal damnation. Cleotha Abston, Matthew Stevens, your names have been called. And when the weight of your guilt weighs heavy upon you, you too will never rest in peace. That's going to do it for this edition of Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. I want to thank you for, first off, having patience with me enough to join me on a Monday afternoon after that unplanned, unexpected interruption yesterday. I appreciate you all. I want to thank you for joining me as always. And if you like any and everything that you have seen and heard here today, and you want to get in contact with your boy, I got numerous ways for you to get in contact with me. You can hit me up on Facebook at Bethea'S Byte Reloaded, on X at EKB316, that's in all caps, on YouTube at Bethea'S Byte Reloaded, on Instagram at EKB316, this is all lowercase, on TikTok at King of Hearts 316 2021, and by email at the address is kingofhearts316_09 at outlook.com. I appreciate you all dropping by. You're asked to hit me up with a like, share, subscribe to the channel, drop me a comment either in the comments section when this video is set up, or in the community section. I'm always there posting some kind of news or other, and I'm always available to respond to whatever your comments are. Also, if you would like to help donate to the channel, you can hit me up at PayPal me EKB316, on Cash App $ EKB316, or Venmo EB the Last Outlaw. Nothing is obligated, but it's always appreciated. Alright, let me go ahead and tie this up in a bow. This is the drama-free true crime destination. This is your home for news without the drama, where your opinions matter, where lively debates are encouraged, where your voice is heard, and above all else, justice is served. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Bethea'S Byte, and it's reloaded. Thank you for joining me on a Monday afternoon. Let's do this again, hopefully at my regular time and hopefully without interruption. Until then, you guys, you all know what to do. Byte.
Thanks for watching and joining me here at the drama-free true crime destination. Be sure to like, share, subscribe to the channel, and drop me a comment on this video. Also, be sure to follow Bethea'S Byte Reloaded all over social media. This is Bethea'S Byte, and it's reloaded.